This program was recorded on Monday, July the 23rd, in the year of our Lord, 2018. The opinions expressed by the participants in the following program do not necessarily represent that of this station or its management.
Or anybody else.
From the John DeVita Recording Studio, located in an undisclosed and clandestine location on the great northwest side of our fair city of Chicago, we once again are pleased to be presenting yet another edition of our monthly roundtable panel discussion show, Meet the Chicago Historians. Now here's the guy who started it all, John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Rich Lang. From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Meet the Chicago Historians on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment on Monday, July the 23rd, the year 2018. Today, the panel will be talking about what's so funny about Chicago. So sit back and enjoy Meet the Chicago Historians. And now to start today's broadcast, here is our announcer, Mr. Richard Lang.
And now here's our panel moderator, Jack Red Ryan. Jack?
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. Special edition today. We have some little celebration right after our roll call. And to my right, we have my old buddy from second grade, Tom McKenna. Hello.
Yeah, hello. Glad to be here. Glad to see you're back in the saddle, John. Lifelong retired Chicago police officer, as is our moderator, and lifelong friend of our moderator, John, Jack, Red, Ryan, whatever name he's going under these days. And one of the few people that will actually admit to being that lifelong friend of our moderator.
You're always around to explain me to everybody.
That's right.
Make apology.
That's right. John speaks and then I explain it. I'm his official translator.
You got a lot of splaining to do.
Like Lenny and George in the Mice and Men.
Right, exactly.
Well, George. I can't say Sylvester George.
Sounds more like Dizzy.
Okay, next up, right here. You're talking. You're next.
Oh, okay. Bill Kugelman from the Chicago Fire Department a while back. And I want to wish everyone a good day. I hope we have some good weather. We sure haven't had very much good weather this past year. So I'm also with the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago, of which this
Saturday,
28th, the Saturday, we will have an open house. 5218 Southwestern will be open from 10 to 2, and we've had some very, very good luck lately, and a lot of new people coming in and realizing what we have, what gems that we have. My thing always is bring a camera and the kids and take a picture of them in that old fire truck. So hope to see you there.
Is it true Ed Burke was very influential in backing the...
Ed Burke was. He was, without him we wouldn't have this.
14th Alderman Ed Burke, I might say.
And Ed, I saw a picture the other day, a couple of days ago, or yesterday, Ed fell. Looked like somebody worked him over, but he fell, and he really had some wounds.
You hurt himself?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Came into a city council meeting all banged up.
All banged up, and black eye and some on his ear and so forth. So wish Ed some good days ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Get well, pal. We miss you.
In addition to what they did for you, he wrote that book on End of Watch.
Yes.
About the Chicago policeman got killed on the job, and he also he wrote one on inside the wigwam or from the wigwam.
All the Chicago political.
Yeah, so with the political conventions here. Matter of fact, he sent me a copy after I was working the polling place a couple of years ago, and his one regular in there said that I was a historian. Really? And he sent it to me. So I'm not saying this.
I had a
He can't
chance.
do anything for me now. I'm through. But I'm just saying it's true.
I met him at a Bruce Dumont function downtown some years back. Very affable guy. Very,
Oh, yeah.
very personal. I can see why he's had such a successful career in politics. Very likable guy.
Oh, next up, you.
I'm John Escachocco. I'm a former Cicero Town trustee, an assessor, and state representative, and an alumnus, as I think just about all of us are, of the old WJJG. And glad to be here in the month of July for Meet the Chicago Historians, honoring our special event, the birthday of a very special, high-ranking individual, which shall be announced shortly,
that
I
be?
believe.
Ooh.
Let our folks guess for a while first. By the way, John, does your S stand for anything, or like Harry Truman added S to his name? Didn't
No,
he?
it stands for my grandfather's name, which was Stephen. I was named for my father, John, and his father, Stephen.
Oh, very good. Then that's you.
That's me.
I'm your announcer, Rich Lang. I've got a background in teaching modern American and European history. And thanks to our beloved Ken Little, I got involved in more recent years in Chicago history, seminars on Chicago history. I'm also involved in a group that recreates old-time radio shows. So I have a longing for old-time radio. Now, welcome aboard. Happy July, and let's hope we have some good
Do you
weather
have any of
for a
that,
while.
that coming up, that old-time radio performances?
Not
or?
for another month or so.
Yeah?
No, we got a show coming up at SEEB in September, I'm quite sure.
But you don't go out on the radio, you go out live with that, right?
Yeah, we're live, yeah. But no memorization. We
And
just
you had
read the
recorded,
scripts.
or?
No, sometimes we're taped or videotaped or audio taped. But no, we do it live.
And you do, let's see, you a great Gildersleeve?
No, I can do a Frank Nilsson.
Oh, yeah.
Jack
Guy-
Benny, now cut that out.
Yeah, guy who showed up everywhere. Are you the guy behind the counter? No, I'm selling kisses.
Great stuff, that Frank Nilsson.
Rich, you mentioned our friend Ken Little,
Yeah.
and that he just comes up constantly
Yeah. We'll never forget
at the
him.
museum, and that
Yeah.
something happens, and I'll ask Ken. He'll know. What a guy! What a guy!
How he knew Chicago streets.
Oh boy!
That's incredible.
So, before we get into our usual discussion and our monthly talk about the current events, the recent history, we're going to reveal who it is for which this lovely cake was brought in by a most thoughtful but largely absent recently panel member.
It's not me, is it?
Is your birthday?
Just checking. You know, when you get up in years, you forget.
Yeah.
You want to forget?
Let's see, yours is Columbus Day, right?
That's right.
And let's see, when is yours, William?
Oh, January 1.
Why you? Oh,
Really?
New Year, baby.
Yeah, my dad was born 27 minutes after midnight, and screwed my dad out of a tax.
yeah.
department.
Half hour earlier, you would have been.
That's
He
right.
never
Never
let me
forgave you.
forget it.
Never forgive you. Damn.
And I don't know what this is about now on the, the emails and all of this about January. People born in January. You ever see that?
No.
On the T-shirts and I don't know what that is.
What's wrong with that?
Well, I don't know.
Why-
It's a gimmick.
January
It's
1st.
a gimmick.
It's a gimmick to sell T-shirts to
yeah.
people who were born in January.
Yeah. I got a couple.
John S., when is your birthday?
My birthday is in the royal month of April. My birthday is in April,
April what?
the 20th day of April.
Huh?
The
Yeah.
20th, April
20th.
April the 20th.
Oh, you're beyond income tax day.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But my birthday often has fallen on Good Friday or Easter Sunday. When you have a birthday in the middle of April, it's a possibility to hit one of the great Christian holidays, Easter, Good Friday.
How about that? Okay. When's your birthday, Rich?
I'll confess, December, 10 days before Christmas, December 15th.
Oh, my God. You poor guy.
I know. Kind of lost there in the shuffle.
You know.
but it's okay.
Ideally, a kid should be born like June 25th. And he's like
Yeah.
6 months before and 6 months after Christmas. But
I'm like you, Rich. You know,
The holidays, yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, John already said that my birthday is Columbus Day, but I have to correct you, John, to be politically correct. It's not Columbus Day anymore. It's the indigenous
Yeah.
European
what's it
Domination
called?
Day, or what is it?
Indigenous Peoples
Yeah.
Day, or whatever it is. So if I'm around Italian Americans, I can say I was born on Columbus Day. Anyone else, you can't say that anymore.
But anyway, I see him now.
Here we are.
Here's-
Happy
Birthday
to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you.
and many more.
At the John DeVita Broadcast Center.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This is really a treat. I mean, I never expected anything like this. This is the second surprise I've had. Last Tuesday, I was out in Lombard doing a remote broadcast for Paranormal Radio, and after I open up the show and make the introduction, here they come out with a big cake and everybody's singing happy birthday to me. So I tell you, this was one of the best birthdays I've ever had in my life. I might tell you.
That's great.
Where do we present you with the bill for the cake?
That's okay. I've got enough. I got enough pennies to pay for it.
We had the federal cake investigator. He inspected the cake and gave it a clean bill of health.
That's right.
So then, let's see. Before we
I
get
just
into our,
want to tell you that
we're gonna,
last Saturday, not the Saturday that passed, but the week ago Saturday, I had a big doings party up at my home up in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, and all but 3 people that were there, and we're about 25 of us, all but 3 people that were there, all our birthdays are in the month of July, and every one of us except one person is involved in radio broadcasting.
really?
Mike Besh, his birthday's in July, but he's a roofer, so he's my landlord. But everybody else, Kevin Zeflik, Dan Kane, Ron Smolin, Fred Belcastro, and all of us, all our birthdays are all in July, within a few days of one another, and we're all involved in radio broadcasting. So it was a great
Good,
day.
good.
And thank you very much for everything.
You're welcome.
Ron has been here. He was here a couple of times, I know.
Yeah.
He also is a panelist on the railroad, the Chicago Junction show. So, thought I'd put that in there.
Nobody's mentioned how old, though, John. Come on.
8-0.
Aha.
Okay.
The big
Yeah,
8-0.
yep,
Big
8-0. 8-0.
Big
Yep.
8-0.
And today
Well-
I feel like 180.
Oh, gee.
If 60's the new 40, let's see, figure this one out now.
80's
Let's
the new
see.
60.
You're about 55?
Well, that's what I said when I turned 50, and they said, you're middle aged. I said I'd feel more comfortable thinking 50 is middle aged if I knew more 100-year-old people.
And talking about Ken Little, his son, Stephen, who's a battalion chief on the Chicago Fire Department, he turned 60 yesterday.
Wow.
And I known Steve since he was about 15, 16 years old. So,
I didn't think he was that.
yeah, he's 60 years
far
old.
along,
Yeah. So, okay.
Well, Gary Lewis is older than I am, Jerry's son. So, my son-in-law wouldn't believe that. What's his name? Chris. Chris. On. You know,
Chris Christie?
Chris.
Chris Wallace.
Oh,
That was Mike Wallace's son. I said he sure is.
Okay, wow.
I said, Scout's honor.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until, I knew it shortly after he started, but when he first started, I didn't put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
Mike Wallace had his big start here, I believe, on the radio and TV. Myron Wallace, he was on for
Yeah.
one of the beer companies on what were some of the
Let's see,
Chicago beers?
Rheingold or something like that. Yeah.
Around 1960, he hosted a syndicated half-hour show called Biography. Remember Biography?
Biography, sure.
Yeah, I
All
remember it.
FDR and Churchill and Hitler, all the great figures of the 20th century, and he was the narrator.
Yeah,
of
it still circulates around on the.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in
Oh, I've missed
decades.
that
It was
one.
well done, I thought. It was.
Oh, yeah, it was a good show.
Didn't get too deep into it. No opinions, but
This is straightforward, the life of a famous person.
yeah. Today, Mao Zedong, Gabby Hayes, he was on there.
Right spectrum.
Shecky Green.
Lar America First Daily.
My first point,
Remember him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember him coming on the Jack Parr show?
Uncle Sam had.
He was a local. a matter of fact, he owned some company that manufactured bar stools.
Is he still
yeah.
living?
Oh God,
No.
I wouldn't be.
And he would
140.
Oh.
he would appear at one time in his Uncle Sam costume, and on the FCC regulations, which is supposed to allow for equal time, Jack Paar, when he had the Tonight Show, this would have been in the 1960 presidential cycle, he had John Kennedy on, he had Richard Nixon on, so he filed, and they had him on. And it was an interesting guess, you know. Of course, Parr would eat that stuff up with a spoon anyway, so something different.
Well, our America First Day.
I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for anybody in 1960 anyway, so.
I want to find out where this Willie Wilson is going to have his next church shindig. He gave out, what was it, $200,000?
That's what the
Yeah,
paper
right.
said.
Yeah,
Church?
he was passing out cash.
Yeah,
What's that?
Oh,
He was passing out cash.
You'd say something.
at a church
that's
function.
an old Chicago political.
That's
guy.
right. I always settled for the pint of wine. I didn't want the $2. I always told my precinct captain after I voted. I said, "Hey, Emil, where's my pint of wine? Keep the $2."
But to hand out that much money at a church function like this, whether what kind of church it was, that's he hit the papers right on the head.
I remember reading that Patty Baller, who was known as the last of the saloon keeper aldermen,
Yep.
who was still in the city council when I was in college in the mid '60s. He on election day, one of his men had the responsibility of going to the bank and getting a sack of silver dollars. And he would stand in front of his polling place with a coat with both pockets filled with silver dollars, with which he would exchange with each voter as he shook hands as they walked through the door.
And he would do that over at Riverview also. He that was his
Well,
hangout. So
Well,
to
and
speak.
and now through the advances in technology, Obama did the same thing, but with cell phones.
Obama phone.
Was-
Obama phones.
Yeah.
what was that from Patty Bowler where WLS got his silver dollar survey? Remember
Could have
that?
been. It
Yeah,
could have been inspired by the political career of. His name was Matthias. I think it was Matthias K. Paddy with double D Baller.
Yeah.
Paddy Baller.
Was he the one that had the famous line, "Chicago ain't ready for
Ain't ready.
reform"?
That was
That
him.
sounds right.
Still ain't.
Chicago ain't ready for reform.
Is
True,
it ain't
true
ready?
then,
Ain't.
true today.
How did Willie Wilson make his
live,
fortune?
live through the ages. And 50 years from now, it'll still be true.
They would
Some
always
things
run
never
this,
change.
They would
That's
always
right.
run this picture of him in the newspapers. We would have this top hat on, cockeyed on his head, and a big grin as though he was 3 sheets to the wind. And that was his standard
Well,
photo that they
That
would
was
run of him
the
in the
23rd Ward?
40. I think it was the 43rd ward.
Because there was a song about
it
the
was the
23rd
43rd.
Ward, remember? Well, the 43rd Ward, you're right.
43rd ward.
43rd Ward. Win Strachey made a recording of it. Remember Win Strachey?
Oh yeah.
Well, he came in, I think, right after they changed it to only one alderman per ward. They used to have
The old-
originally
yeah.
they had 2 aldermen for every ward. What a scary thought that is.
That was how,
two guys. Oh my
100
God!
people in the city council.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah.
that was how you had Hinky Dink Kenna
Oh yeah.
That's right.
that from that era and his
Bathhouse
partner
John.
Bathhouse John Coughlin.
Yeah, right.
They were the
yeah,
2 aldermen
yeah.
from that ward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear a good Chicago joke?
Sure.
The Chapman
Sure.
Decree.
Okay.
It's supposed to cut out all the favoritism, and Andrew Jackson started that
The spoils.
spoil system,
Spoils
also
system.
known as patronage, right?
He threw out everyone
right,
and,
that's
from
right.
the previous administration and filled it up with his people.
You know.
How did Willie Wilson make his fortune? I've forgotten.
Who's that?
Willie Wilson. How did he make his fortune to be giving out all this money?
Who?
Willie Wilson.
I don't know.
The
I- I
candidate,
was
one of the
pharmacist?
candidates
I'm
for
going to say
mayor.
McDonald's.
Oh,
or something
W.
like
Wilson?
Yes, McDonald's
he might
franchises.
have
I
been.
thought.
Yeah,
Orlando Wilson?
Willie
Willie Wilson.
Wilson. He's
Woodrow
the candidate
Wilson?
for mayor, black
Oh,
candidate for mayor.
Oh,
The guy was giving out.
He ran last time too.
$1,000, yeah.
I think he ran for something else.
No.
It's one of those guys he just likes to
Run.
run.
Yeah.
I know when OW came in, he's probably the only police, well, was commissioner before and superintendent since, in our time, that actually had a free hand to do what he wanted. He wasn't being held on a leash. But he didn't have much of a choice at the time but to, get what he wanted.
he had so much public support that
Right.
Yeah, everybody wanted a change for the better.
Tom and I were like 8th grade when he came along, so.
Yeah.
I tell you
I mean,
what,
as
this
a kid, he was like the Chicago J. Edgar Hoover. I mean, that was the image he
Yeah.
had. He was Mr.
Right.
Crime-busting
good
law
image, yeah.
enforcement. You know.
Well, now with the potential consent decree, with the Chicago Police Department, Obama, before he left office, he told the Justice Department to push it so they could get it through before Trump got inaugurated, which they did. And then when Trump appointed Sessions as Attorney General, he looked at it and said, this is basically nonsense, this big investigation. They sat there and listened to anecdotal stories about people that said they were abused by the police with no basis of fact, no evidence, no nothing, Yeah, I got stopped and the police beat me up and, just nonsense. So he decided not to enforce it because that's what it was. But our mayor and our present Attorney General of the state of Illinois, Lisa Madigan, they are going to come up, or attempting to come up with their own consent decree. They just didn't want to let it drop. And one of the points, there's a lot of points of contention, but one of them, you have to report if you point your gun at someone, if it's discharged or whatever, if you pull your gun out of your holster, you stop a suspicious vehicle, you take your gun out or whatever, now you have to leave you have to leave a report on that. I mean, it's mind-boggling with people that demand, a safe city, and then handcuff the people that are take the oath of office to uphold and enforce the laws.
Will the criminals have to fill out paperwork if they pull a gun? Will there be forms?
That's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Will they
I mean, it's
death certificate.
yeah, it's completely nonsense.
That brings to mind a recent event we had that was run by the 21st century's answer to Moses, Father Flager, blocking traffic on the Ryan. Now,
Yeah,
why are we doing this? Because there are too many, there's too much violence and shootings in the black community.
Too many guns. Yeah.
So how are we supposed to stop this? Well, let's have some more interaction with the police, which was basically considered to be hassling people. It's police brutality, Gestapo tactics, profiling. So if we are to we'll step up the amount of street stops we make, which is the way we prevent things from happening, the very same people who are supposed to be running this to bring attention to the fact that there's too much violence will be protesting again. So
do fire engines
it's
or
a no-lose situation for them.
do fire engines or ambulances ever use the Dan Ryan Expressway?
All the time.
It's
Sure.
It was complete, and then the superintendent joined with him in the
Yeah, that
march.
was very strange.
Absolutely insane. The people always ask me, I've been retired 16 years now, and they say, the difference between when you were on the job and things now. I said, well, one of the major differences is I worked the Dan Ryan for 8 years. I did it in a squad car. Now our superintendent walks the Dan Ryan. I said that's a bit of a change.
Pounding a beat.
What they did on the Dan Ryan Expressway has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with what the it's like
They
the
got
old
press coverage.
the old
The purpose of it.
the
is
old
to get-
the old joke about you see someone looking for something on the ground and you say, what happened? Oh, I lost my car keys. Well, let me give you a hand, let me help you look. So you're looking, you say, are you sure you lost them here? No, I lost them over there. Well, what are you looking here for? Well, the light's better. Now that's a joke, but that is exactly what they did.
Yeah, yeah.
What are you marching on? Well, we get more attention here and we do it.
Yeah.
But the true problem is out in the community.
No.
And they absolutely refuse to address the real problem. It's
Yeah,
like
the
they say,
episode's largely been
what do you
forgotten
think?
already.
What do you think would reduce violence in the black community by a greater degree? Stronger gun control laws or more fathers in the home? They don't want to address that.
No.
So that's not popular. So it's the police's fault.
But
And- yeah, and-
like John said, though, Tom, they got their names in the paper and all of this, and that's what they wanted.
I was watching a program that was Saturday morning.
Well, this
and
became-
they broke in with live coverage of,
Yeah.
Right.
of Father Flea. They cut into the
Well,
program.
this
about
became a
quarter after 10.
national,
Oh, this is big-
national
this
coverage.
is big news,
Right.
you know, big story.
And the thing is, blame the police. Now, anyone with any a degree of intelligence knows that what's happening in the black community has very little to do with the police. There's a multitude of problems, and politicians, what they do to address the situation is one of them. But there isn't a politician in the world, when you're blaming someone else, that is going to say, "Hey, wait a second, stop blaming the police." I have to take responsibility for this too, as an elected official. You're not going to hear that. It's like if you're a little kid and you knock over a lamp and break it, and your parents come home and they blame it on the dog. You're certainly not going to say, "Hey, wait a second, Mom and Dad, I broke that lamp. Don't blame the dog." No, you're going to go, "Oh, thank God." Yeah, and that's basically what's going on. It's the police. If you really think that the police is the problem in the community, it'll never, ever get solved.
Have you been? I'm sure you have been paying attention to the political TV commercials. The one coming up now with Mike Madigan announcing that he is the in the whole country, he's just
Most corrupt.
corrupt. Did they use the name corrupt? Yeah, I guess they did.
Something like that.
And some of the other ones, I like the one with Rauner, that these people in Missouri and Minnesota.
Thank you, Governor Rauner.
Yeah, Indiana. I mean, they really hit it right on the head with these. You never saw that before in any election of what they're doing now, and it's so right. It's just so right.
Well, plus the Democratic candidate JB, he can't help himself being a Democrat. This is before he's elected. He's talking about raising the state income tax, but it's only going to be the rich people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
It's
progressive
only
tax.
gonna, define rich. But the thing is, he's making the statement before he's elected. Can you imagine if he gets elected and he says, "Well, you know what? I told these voters that I was going to raise taxes, and they voted me in. So guess what? Here we go." In California, they have a graduated state income tax. I believe the top percentage is 13.9%. I believe. I'm not sure, but it goes down to like 6.5%. So if they're going to they have a graduated income tax, it's going to go from 4.9 on the lower end up to probably over 6 or 7%.
And there will be a line of cars leaving the state of
Yeah.
Illinois going to
It's crazy.
Wisconsin and Indiana.
like it is now,
Yeah.
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 and even Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look at the money these guys are spending. You know,
In the
all of
added fees, I paid a city utility bill, and I did it on their website. So I'm looking the total, and I'm looking. There's like a $20.83 difference from what the bill was. Service fee,
Sure.
service charge,
For paying it
$20.
online.
Yeah, and it's paying online.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like saying, I should cancel this. Fill out a check. Make if you do that, someone actually has to open it. You have to record it, hand record. I mean, suppose the reason for doing it online is that it creates less work for the city.
Yeah. You may save postage.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
oh boy,
You've got us coming and going.
was that a?
Doesn't the legislature at least bear some responsibility in this whole crisis going on?
Sure
Well, when
they
they-
are, but who controls the legislature for jobs?
When they raised the state income tax back to 4.9%, the people in Springfield, I would imagine they were looking out of the windows of the state capitals, expecting the torches and the pitchforks. The people are going to be nothing. 4 supposedly, if you live in the city of Chicago or Cook County, if you're single and you make $100,000 a year, you would say that's a pretty good income.
You're a rich man, yeah.
Okay. the state income tax, 4.9%. Federal, you'd be in probably the 28% bracket. If you own any property, condo or a home or whatever, the property taxes, they say it averages out to about half of your income for state income tax, federal income tax, and property tax. So if you make 100,000, 50,000 or half of your income goes to the government.
But if you're one of those people who doesn't pay income tax, doesn't mean anything to you.
Right, exactly.
It's very easy to vote for the candidate who says he's going to raise income tax because you don't pay income tax.
Exactly. Right.
So the cure is
Excellent
more
point.
taxes, right?
Right. And
More
Yeah, that's
assessment,
always
more
the solution.
yeah.
Yeah.
what I say is, imagine walking into your employer and saying, you know what, boss, I was going over my finances and, I just don't have enough money to pay my bill, so there's only one alternative. You're going to have to give me an increase. You're going to have to increase my salary because there's no other alternative. What do you think the boss would say? Do you like working here? If so, get out of my office.
You want to hear?
I think it's
uh,
time.
John?
It's time for our first commercial.
Oh, here we go.
Now for a brief intermission. You're listening to Meet the Chicago Historians.
We hope.
We're going to have our cake.
Hope they're listening.
Hey, John.
Let's have our cake.
Yeah, let's have some.
Well, I have the right place for you to go, and that is the printing store in Oak Park, Illinois. Call or see Phil Berry at 621 Madison Street or call 708-383-3638. Phil Berry will sit down with you and help you plan whatever you need printed. Now his products are brochures, booklets, business cards, catalogs, envelopes, letterheads, flyers, invitations, newsletters, notepads, menus, mailers, manuals, labels, posters, postcards, price list, NCR forms, sale sheets, table tents, pocket folders, and presentation forms. And he also has 1 to 4 color offset printing, digital copying, high-speed copying, graphic designs, typesetting, laminating, foil stamping, die cutting, and imprinting. And his complete bindery service includes booklets, cutting, scoring, folding, numbering, padding, and drilling. So once again, for all your printing needs, call or see Phil Berry at the printing store at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. They are located at Madison Street and Clarence, just east of Oak Park Avenue. And that's at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or give Phil Berry a call at 708-383-3638. For all your printing needs, the printing store is there to help you. They're 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois. And once again, you can call Phil Berry at 708-383-3638.
Now back to the show. Jack, me. No more. I won't say any more on that one.
There is a slight interlude. We're stuffing our faces with birthday cake.
Anyway, what's so funny about Chicago? Well, we talked about a few things so far. They weren't funny in a way, but they're all also too true. So, Chicago has been known as a hotbed of comic originality. For example, in old time radio. Rich, old time radio.
Yes.
Any shows originating in Chicago that are any good?
Oh, we were thinking of Don McNeil's Breakfast Club.
Who?
Don McNeil's Breakfast Club.
That's right. How many years was that on?
Ooh, I think
Long,
a couple
long
of
time.
decades. Maybe 20 years.
Or more, yeah.
Almost
Good morning,
into
Breakfast
the
Clubbers.
60s.
Good morning to you. Remember the third call to breakfast and all that? Yeah.
Oh, I missed the first 2 calls. That was the third call to breakfast.
Okay. What about something called it started out as something called Sam and Henry, and it
Missed that one.
that was the genesis of when they switched radio stations. Amos and Andy, Charles Correll and Freeman Gosden,
Yeah, they were the
2 actors.
white actors who did it in blackface. Yeah, yeah.
And that became so popular that they would actually, the radio would stop. They would stop the movie and play Amos and Andy
Played in the theaters. Yeah,
at night,
yeah.
so people could catch up on them. So
Over by you.
they were 2 white vaudevillians is what they were, and they did the black dialect, and they had other actors on there that were black actors and actresses also. The show was on that in the radio for a long time. What, 20 years probably?
I think so.
Starting in the
yeah,
late
yeah.
20s.
Then it had a brief stay on television with
Yeah,
black
then
actors.
then I went to a TV series.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Breakfast Club?
Amos and Andy.
Oh,
Originally, it was set on
Breakfast
South
Club
State
was-
Street in Chicago, and then of course they changed the location to Harlem, New York, which is much better known community we know.
the Breakfast Club was taped and not taped, but ran at the Sherman Hotel on the
Which one?
first floor. Sherman,
Sherman.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And,
Sherman House.
my dad worked there. I worked there as house sticks, and so we got to know all of those people, whose names I can't remember anymore. But it was quite a nice gig over there.
I don't know. Is McNeil Hospital in Berwyn named after Don McNeil?
No, it's
I
No?
doubt
a
it.
little different.
No. Oh. Okay, just
His
thought I'd ask.
McNeil was spelled with an I, N-E-I-L, and McNeil.
But I mean, it sounds the same.
Could have been the
Sounds
Don-
suspicious
the
to me.
Don McNeil Hospital.
Yeah.
It's
You
EA.
used to get a great breakfast there if you were.
I think Fran Allison got her start on the Don McNeil.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
Went there from there to Kukla, Fran and Ollie.
How about a guy named Dave Garroway? He had a
We started in Chicago.
Chicago
That's
Garroway at Large, wasn't it originally radio? And that became he went to the Today Show and
He certainly got a start in Chicago. Yeah, yeah.
Steve Allen.
Steve Allen was
another,
born here.
Chicago guy.
went to
Yeah,
Mount
sure.
Carmel High School.
Yeah, I don't know if he graduated. I know he went there.
Yeah, he went. Yeah, I attended. You know, like they always say in the book.
Yeah, right. Yeah, studied at.
Well, for that matter, we had
George Goebel.
Yeah.
Remember the good old Lonesome George?
Lonesome George.
he got a big start with WLS
Yep.
when they had the National Barn Dance on there. Country Western with a guitar.
Of course, let's not overlook Second City. That's where internationally famous for
all kinds of, yeah.
improv comedians. There's a litany of famous comedic actors that got their start
Alan
at
Arkin, Shelley Berman,
at Second City.
The Belushi brothers, Chevy Chase. Who else? Come on.
I think Gilda Radner, wasn't she from
Yeah.
almost all of the
Yeah.
original cast of Saturday Night Live were Second City graduates or alumni.
They also the man who's founded it. I can't think of his name now. Was it Stallings? Bernard Stallings? Maybe? Stallings. Also started a Second City in Canada's Second City, Toronto.
Right.
So there's a Second City there also. A lot of people don't realize that there was that Second City TV, Second City Television.
SCTV.
That originated from right there on Wall Street, which started as the Compass Players at the University of Chicago, I believe. I think even Ed Asner was a member of that at one time.
Could be.
Well, come on, let's get some more funny stuff about Chicago. Okay. Jack E. Leonard, we all remember him.
Sure.
No, we all of us were old enough.
Yeah, he
You
was
Chicagoan?
the
I did not know that.
he was the original Don Rickles,
Right, that's right. That's right. He was
Yeah.
the first
He was a
insult.
West Sider.
Good comparison.
the
Yeah.
insult comic.
Absolutely true.
He had a his son. He married an Irish girl. They raised the kid a Catholic. The son son became a priest. Later, was in the seminary. So Jack E. Leonard was it Don? What's his name? Got smart. Don
Rickles.
Don Adams.
Don Adams.
Yeah, Don Adams' wedding, a Catholic ceremony. So he came over to the priest and said, like in his dialect, "Pretty good job there, Father. I don't think you're ready for high mass yet." So, which is
He was a character.
unbelievable.
Sorry about that, Chief.
Yeah.
Well, I saw Don Rickles at the Chicago Theater not that long ago, maybe, I don't know, 10 years, 8 years or whatever. And in that short period of time, 90% of Don Rickles' act would not be at all acceptable today. And that's not, I mean, can you say anything anymore? Look at what happened to the CEO of Papa John's, was it? He was involved in a conversation. I don't even think he made mentioned the N-word. We were talking or using it as an example.
As I understand, he was quoting someone else
Yeah,
who
right.
had used that
Yeah,
word.
right. And he's history, you know. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, really, it's gone. And believe me, I'm not defending offensive language. I'm not defending racial slurs at all. It's very offensive to me and everyone on this panel. But I think it has flipped over the edge to where, I mean, it's you barely can speak without offending someone.
You cannot use language that offends the left. I mean, that's the rule. You can say whatever you want about conservatives, Republicans, but you cannot say anything that offends the left. That is absolutely unacceptable. You're a bigot. If you-
Southerners are open
season,
game.
Catholics,
cops.
Christian fundamentalists.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want about
Yeah,
them.
right.
Southerners you can knock.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, but was this political correctness? Is that what it is? The political correctness police?
You know, for people that claim that they're liberal and inclusive and they want everyone's opinions, they're the most close. Look
They're the
at
most intolerant.
Look at the View. The Whoopi Goldberg and Judge
Oh God, yeah.
Judge Jean Pirro.
There it was the F word.
Yeah.
That was the F word that was flying in every
But
direction.
the judge did coin a new phrase. What was it? The Trump dysfunctional
What is
syndrome, or
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't pull it out.
yeah, they freak out.
Well, they believe in diversity in everything except thought. They will not tolerate diversity of thought. Everybody has to be a lockstep liberal.
Right, and freedom to choose, unless it's a gun, and then you don't have freedom to choose. You know, it's freedom to choose, and everything that we decide you should choose.
Right.
As long as you agree with them, you're fine.
Yeah.
That's but as soon as you even
I will
begin,
defend to the death your right to agree with me.
as soon as you begin to disagree at
That's
all,
the
you're
modern
you're
version of
homophobic, you're
Voltaire.
racist, you're whatever it might be, a Nazi,
But
whatever's
the
convenient.
thing is, I mean, look at the so-called institutions of higher learning. You know, isn't the whole purpose of that is to go and get an education and learn all points of view?
That was the old idea of the university, that there was an openness to thought and ideas and competition. Not anymore. Not anymore. And not for a long time. It hasn't been for a long time.
Conservative thought. It's
My favorite story, when I was a freshman at DePaul, they had a communist, an avowed, announced communist was speaking on the campus. This is a Catholic, a nominally Catholic institution in the 1960s. And they had a communist speaking. And I'm walking up the steps with a friend of mine, and he showed me the pamphlet. And I said, yeah, they're going to have, and I said, they're going to have a damned communist speak here. And an upperclassman, a big guy, must have been a senior, wheels around on the stairway and says, if that's your attitude, Buster, you better not show up at that rally, because we won't tolerate people like you. We believe in freedom of speech.
But not for you.
Both of us busted out laughing at that line, and he didn't understand what was funny about what had just been
They
said.
don't get it. Well, that's another thing about liberals. They say they have no sense of humor. Nothing's funny. Yeah.
Particularly about themselves.
Right.
Well, now that you mention it, what's ever happened to free speech on campus or whatever? You get some speaker, they can tear the place down and burn it down and cause all riots and.
Yeah.
don't even let the guy talk, or the woman, whoever
No.
it might be.
No, if you're a conservative and you're going to speak on a college campus, you're running into real problems. Demonstrations, demands that it be canceled. They'll force you out of the venue. They'll assign you to some tiny speaking location. You won't get the main lecture hall. They will do everything they can to make it impossible for conservatives.
Well, that's one of the reasons that liberals really promote high school students when they graduate to a 4-year university, when they've done a tremendous amount of studies that college really isn't for everyone, and there are other alternatives, especially trades,
Sure.
businesses. But they want them to get the 4-year liberal indoctrination.
Yeah.
Those young impressionable minds being swayed into the liberal camp.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories about the case for higher education. There was a guy on the south side of Chicago whose son, I want to say Brother Rice, but I'm not sure. But it was a high school on the south side of Chicago. It wasn't Rita. And his son was very mechanically inclined, and he was into cars and car repairs, and like a lot of kids that age. So he told him, he said, you know what? He said, you can go to wherever he said, Northern or whatever, or I'll buy you a gas station. There was a gas station for sale that had some repair. Well, naturally, the kid took the gas station. Today, he's got three gas stations, and making a lot more money than any of his friends that went to.
Well, that sounds like what you just said. Makes me think of, I did take one course in economics at the City College. I wish I could take it over again. I'd be more receptive to it. But the instructor was talking about, he was a disciple of Milton Friedman from the University of Chicago. Who was, he was a laissez-faire type of guy, hands-off, free market. He said one of Friedman's point was, all this big emphasis, this is in the 60s now, everybody's got to go to college. Everyone's got to. He said, it's a waste for so many people.
Sure.
They would do better off working for those 4 years, investing the money in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, Which it sounded like that was treasonous to say
Wasn't
that.
Friedman when they're complaining about the 1%ers, and there's a certain 1% of the population make the majority of the money, and how this is outrageous? And he said that's just how things work, because if you want those people to make a lot of money, because when they make a lot of money, you make more money.
Sure.
It's not a what's the term, the zero sum formula, where
No,
if you make $1,000 and I make nothing, and if I reduce yours down to $500, that I get $500. That's not how it works.
No.
If you make $1,000 and I make nothing, and I reduce yours down to $500, I still get nothing.
That's right.
But if I increase yours, and this is kind of a simple oversimplification of this, but if I increase yours to $1,500, now I might get $500.
Well,
The trickle-down theory, they some call that.
The left believes in redistributing the pieces of the pie. Conservatives believe in baking a bigger pie, so that everybody gets a bigger piece.
That's well put.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's just like, people who have it in for our president or other people with money, they seem to believe in, without knowing it, what they call a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
In other words, if I'm wealthy, I must have screwed a lot of people out of their money somewhere, or cheated them. But and the reality is, if I make more money as whatever it is I'm in, business, tycoon, builder, whatever, you're going to make more money too. All of the workers and artisans, everybody all the way down the line. It increases, because money supply is not just a solid, you know what I'm saying, singular piece thing. It can, money is your medium of exchange. It's not anything in and of itself. Am I right?
How many jobs did Bernie Sanders ever create?
Who?
Or Bernie Sanders, or prominent socialists, or Elizabeth. How many jobs do they create? They don't create any jobs.
That was one of the best statements during the last presidential campaign was Donald Trump's son said, I believe there were 14 original candidates from the Republican Party and 3 in the Democratic Party. And he said, of all the presidential candidates, my father is the only one that ever signed a paycheck.
That's right. That's right. Because we've never had people from the private sector in politics. I mean, he's the first president we've ever had who never held any public office, either in the military or in government. We've never had a president before.
You know
like
what?
that.
Another thing that kills me about the deep-seated hatred that some of these people have towards Donald Trump. My question to them is where was that hatred before he announced his candidacy for president? He's been in the public eye for, 40 years?
And was a very popular figure.
Let's just say,
on television.
across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, with the Jewish organizations and civil rights organizations, and there was never a mention.
Yeah.
Now you mention the name Donald Trump, he's a racist.
Yeah.
Or he's insane. I like that one.
Yeah.
He's mentally incompetent. Where are they coming up with this stuff? I mean, I can see. I didn't like our last president, but I certainly, didn't go crazy about the insults and rants that some of these people are tossing towards him.
He got what you might call a modest inheritance from his father, and he ran it into billions. He became a billionaire, and he's now president of the United States. If that's insanity, if that's incompetence, then I don't know what you have to do to be a success in this world.
I think that's what I would call the American way.
Yeah.
Well, I tell people I've read the book The Art of the Deal with Trump, and it's tremendously interesting about how he really worked things. And I think he's doing the exact same thing with all these meetings with the in North Korea and with Putin.
He's a businessman.
He knows how to negotiate.
Yeah.
That's because that's what he's been doing all his life.
Which was sorely lacking for the 8 years prior to his coming to the White House.
And certain
And
things that they criticize him for in these negotiations, the criticism is coming from people that know absolutely nothing about negotiations, because there are certain things that you do in negotiations to deliberately upset your opponent.
Of course.
I mean, they teach there's seminars about like contract negotiations. I mean, Bill know about this, where if you go in, like when you if your opponent or on the other side of the table gets up and goes to the washroom, you go and sit in his seat. I mean, stuff like that. Where the average person would go, oh, look at this. The classic is when he was meeting with the French president.
Macron.
And he brushed he had some lint or brushed it off. Yeah. He did that deliberately. People, oh, look at this. How ignorant. No, that's a tactic. All these things. When he shook hands with Putin, if you noticed, and again, this is all negotiation, all body language.
Yeah.
He put his hand on his back, he shook hands and went like this. Mm-hmm. He just hit him. Yeah. I just hit you. I'm in charge here. I'm in charge doing that.
Deep down, yeah.
Hey, John, how's it going?
All psychological.
Yes, exactly.
All psychological.
But people that don't know this, they think, oh, look at this guy. Oh, he's an idiot. Well, he's a pretty successful idiot.
You have to think of it almost like a chess game. How many moves ahead?
Yeah.
Like when someone comes out and says, asking about Russian influence, and the president said, well, why would they want to do that? He didn't say he didn't believe they do. Why would they want to? Well, okay, we can always start hollering about that now and end the whole summit, or we can talk privately and get something done.
Calling Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man was a calculated message.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you a name. Now what? Now what are you going to do? Right.
Well, this morning was a tweet. The Iranians were threatening us, and he said,
all in
told
caps.
Them to bleep off, in so many words.
When in 1978 or whatever it was, when we in the firefighters union were going to, we were getting ready to go on strike because we weren't getting what we were promised. The people from our international and from other political know-hows in the city and in the country said, why don't you go to the University of Michigan? They have a class there on negotiations.
Right.
And so Moon, Frank Mascari, Bill Reddy, and myself went. And it was very, very interesting.
It is, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's
And you know-
it's like the direct opposite of what you think you should do.
Yeah,
But it works.
Yeah, and you know the whole thing worked.
Yeah.
The whole thing worked, and you know we won. We won collective bargaining for the whole state of Illinois, and some of those things you were saying, Tom. Yeah, we used.
Right.
We used. You know,
We didn't know you was a Wolverine.
we put it out there, and you know, a lot of people didn't understand, but our members did, because that's what they expected, and we got what we wanted, and it was some of it was pretty funny, but you could see the results coming.
Yeah, and the thing is, what Trump is doing, it leaves the anti-Trumpers, I mean, totally and completely unhinged. They don't know what to make of it. When when Obama, some of these statements he made about during the campaign, Trump says he's going to improve the economy. What's he got? A magic wand? You know, well, I guess he did, because he certainly improved a lot more in a year and a half than you did in 8 years.
8 years.
Look at unemployment rates now, way down.
And it's funny, the media doesn't seem to talk about it all that much.
You
No, yeah.
really have to.
When it went down by 1/10% under Obama, it was big news. You know.
Headlines.
No, it's he's a businessman, and he made billions in business, and that's what this country is. It's a big business. We're a big business.
The business of America is business.
Yeah.
Calvin
Who said that?
Coolidge.
Who
said
Calvin
that?
Coolidge.
Yeah, right.
Who said that one?
Calvin Coolidge.
Who?
President Coolidge.
Oh, Coolidge?
Coolidge said that. He's always and the left always mocks him for saying that. He's always ridiculed for saying that.
You know what's scary is supposedly polls that are taken of the millennials, as they're referred to.
Yeah.
They have a pretty strong percentage of that group that believes in socialism and communism. And I think one of the reasons is
That's what they've been taught.
right is that they're graduating, you know, from a university that they just spent $200,000 to get a degree with a major in mid-century tapestry and a minor in jazz flute, you know, and they're living in their parents' basement, so they figure, well, I have no future. I certainly don't want to work hard, so socialism is the thing for me.
Because they owe me it. You know, along the same subject, George McGovern, who ran for president, was it 72?
72.
1972, as a Democratic standard bearer, who was also World War II veteran. I believe he was a bomber
Combat
pilot.
veteran in
Was it?
Army Air Corps
Yeah,
over Europe.
When he finally left public life, he had a bed and breakfast somewhere he was running in New England. He said after a while, if I'd known it was so difficult running a business like this, I would have voted a lot differently when I was in Congress.
Yeah.
So he was quoted with saying
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was an eye-opener for him.
Well, he came from, I believe, South Dakota.
Yeah, he
so,
did,
so
yeah.
he came from the Midwest. I mean, he didn't come from Manhattan or from Hollywood or something. You know, he came from the heartland of America. So I guess maybe the roots of those ideas were there, and it took personal experience.
But what was his path? You know, he just go to school, get in the
Well, you
political
know what?
life.
If you grew, you know, in the after the collapse of the stock market in 29, the 30s, the 40s, if there really wasn't anything like conservatism in this country, conservatism pretty much disappeared with the collapse of the stock market, the New Deal. Everybody was a liberal. Conservatives, if you were a conservative, you were considered an eccentric. You were like something that should be on exhibit in a museum.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
FDR was a god. Yeah.
William F. Buckley is the one that changed that when he in National Review. He wanted to change that to make conservatism a force in America, and he was tremendously successful. When he started National Review, this was considered a fringe point of view.
And there was no conservative radio?
Roger Maris, he was born in one of the Dakotas too.
He was?
Well, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, him and so was George McGovern. Now,
listeners, you've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, and we thank you for it. We'll be right back.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, friends. Do you need new tires for your vehicle? How are the brakes? Are they in good condition? How's your front wheel alignment? Do you need your tires rotated? How are the shocks and struts? Do you need an oil and grease change? How about a tune-up? When was the last time you had your engine tuned up? How about the wiper blades? Are they nice, sharp blades to clean off the rain and snow? How are the headlights, tail lights, stop lights, turn directional signals? Are all the bulbs working? How's your cooling system and the exhaust system? How about your battery? Does that need to be upgraded? How about the belts and hoses? Fuel injectors, timing belt and chain, and the air conditioning. Is that all working properly? Well, if you need any maintenance work done on your vehicle, go to Grand Tire and Auto Service, which is located at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago. They are on Grand Avenue on the north side of the street, about 2 blocks east of Harlem Avenue. You can't miss the building. There's a big Goodyear sign right on top of the building. Or you can call area code 773-622-4361. Don, Chris, or Ken will be more than happy to assist you and to help you with any questions you might have about the maintenance on your vehicle. Their hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 7 o'clock in the evening. Saturday from 7:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And even on Sunday from 9:30 in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So once again, for any maintenance work you might need on your vehicle, go to Grand Tire and Auto Supply. Once again, their address is at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago, about 2 blocks east of Harlem Avenue on the north side of the street. And their phone number is area code 773-622-4361. They have great service. Their mechanics are all certified mechanics, and they do quality work. Now, I've been going to Grand Tire with my vehicle since 1985, right up until this present day. So once again, Grand Tire and Auto Service at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago. Their phone number is 773-622-4361. Don, Chris, and Ken will be more than happy to help you and to advise you on any maintenance work you might need on your vehicle. So once again, Grand Tire and Auto Service at 7034 Grand Avenue in Chicago, about 2 blocks east of Harlem Avenue on the north side of the street. You can't miss the building because there's a big Goodyear sign on the top of the building. That's Grand Tire and Auto Service, 7034 Grand Avenue in Chicago, and their phone number is area code 773-622-4361. For quality service, it's Grand Tire Auto Service, 7034 Grand Avenue in Chicago, 773-622-4361.
Now back to our show. Jack?
You were looking for some, your words, funny stuff. I was at the Fire Academy a couple of days ago, and I noticed a promotion order for a fire lieutenant, and half of this list was to be promoted on July 16th at 0800. The other half would be promoted on that date, July 16th, at 0801.
Who are?
Yeah,
Class?
Yeah. 1 minute to divide them. Now, I think that's pretty funny.
What was the purpose of that?
That's what I'm saying. It's got to be a legal joke.
Or you have 1 minute seniority over me.
Over that, yeah. Yeah, who ever heard of anything like that? I don't know if I would even believe somebody that told me what the reason was.
Okay. What about, can anybody think of, starting Bill, famous writer, comedian, radio, TV personality, comedy, Chicago, we haven't talked about yet? Or mentioned?
I can't think of anybody.
I've got one.
Got one, Tom?
Bob Newhart.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And Bob Newhart, St. Ignatius,
Oh, yes.
Loyola University.
St. Ignatius graduate?
He started in, most people know him from his TV shows or younger people, but when he started out, he did the stand-up routine, and he always had the telephone. He had a conversation. And one of my favorites was he was in a conversation. He was in England, and he was having a conversation with Sir Walter Raleigh. And if you know this one about smoking.
About tobacco.
Yeah, right. And
Tobacco.
tobacco. And he said, now let me get you take this plant, you chop it up, right? Okay. Now you roll it up in some paper. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. Now you stick it in your mouth, and then you light it on fire, and wait a minute, and then what? Then what do you do? And then you suck the smoke into your lungs, right? And you say, this is popular over there. But that was just one of his routines.
I remember.
He did another skit where he was the night watchman at the Empire State Building the night that King Kong is climbing up the side of the Empire, and he's calling his boss to find out what he should do. And he says, yeah, boss, well, look it up in the manual. Well, I did look it up in the manual under ape, under giant ape, and it said I should take a broom out of the broom closet and open the window and shake it at him and holler, shoo ape, shoo ape. No, I didn't do that, boss. Why? Well, the Army's got planes out there, and they're firing bullets at him, and they don't seem to be having much success. So I really didn't think the broom would do much good, boss.
Yeah. He said in the routine you were talking about, Tom, he goes, he calls there on the phone, and guy at the other end in England goes, "Hey guys, it's Crazy Wally." Walter Raleigh.
Yeah,
He goes,
right.
Listen to this. What's called tobacco? You know, he went through a whole routine
I
there.
always call it tobacco.
Right.
Tobacco.
And he says, "Oh, you want to know? Do we get all those turkeys you sent us?" Yeah. Well, they're running all around London, free and open now. He says, "Come on, Wally, it's an American holiday."
And of course, his TV show, the Bob Newhart Show, was set in Chicago.
Right.
And, we showed him riding the L and going to his office on Michigan Avenue.
We talked about Don Rickles before. Bob Newhart and Don Rickles were like best friends.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about another Chicago show, this one Mike and Molly.
Right.
I like it. Any show that has a Chicago theme, be it fire, police, whatever, I like to watch. I like to see what they are.
I say one thing for that show. They have probably the most realistic Chicago police uniforms
Yeah.
of any Chicago. You see other shows that like they're trying to pass themselves off as Chicago police, and they're not even close.
Yeah.
Right.
These are like actual Chicago police uniforms.
You can always tell if they don't have the checkerboard
Yeah.
on the,
Yeah,
on the
right.
cap.
Real
No,
Chicago
that's a
physique.
funny show. That's
Married with Children, I believe, was set in
Yeah.
Chicago. That took
Yeah.
place in Chicago.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of I mean, that's the only comedy I can think of off the top of my head. The Newhart Show and that one that were actually set in Chicago.
Set in Chicago?
I'm sure there are probably others, but right off I can't think of it.
Mike
that
and
Mar-
Molly shows the neighborhoods.
Right.
You know, they all show the
Married with Children, wasn't that
Married
set
with
there?
Children, yeah. They had a logo of the lakefront at the beginning of it.
Yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, the Buckingham Fountain tourists, because the show is popular in Japan, they say Japanese tourists want to see the El Bundy Fountain
Drinking fountain?
because they lead the Buckingham Fountain.
Associate
Yeah.
that with him.
Yeah.
Oh, here's one. Life with Luigi was on the radio and TV. J. Carroll Nash portrayed him. He was an Italian immigrant come to Chicago.
That
So
was
it
Chicago.
it was
'Cause
Chicago.
usually all those shows were set
Dear
in New
Mamma
York.
Mia, you know.
They were almost
Yeah.
always set in
He'd
New
always
York.
be a letter to his mother.
I didn't know that was set in
He
Chicago.
was sent here. He portrayed him, and for a short while on television, that actor Vito Scotti portrayed him. You know what that is? Vito Scotti.
Good character actor, yeah.
He was the baker in Godfather.
Oh,
The Godfather. For one, millions and thousands of things
He
over
had
the
bit
years.
parts in Columbo very often. He'd play a head waiter in a restaurant
Right.
on Columbo.
Not that it was that much of a comedy. The musical Chicago was very well done.
Yeah.
Good. The musical Chicago.
Oh,
Robin and the Seven Hoods takes place in Chicago. That's where Frank sings "My Kind of Town."
That's right. Yeah.
my kind of town.
They're all standing, I guess, on Michigan Avenue with submachine guns, singing "My Kind of Town, Chicago."
Yeah. What
What
about
other?
what about any writers or would Mike Royko be considered comedy? A lot of his stuff was pretty funny and some
It was
wasn't.
it was satire. I mean, it was
Yeah.
wit. You know, he was.
He got pretty. Was he syndicated? He got to be, didn't he?
I imagine he. I mean, I never read him anywhere than in Chicago, but I imagine he was syndicated.
Yeah.
His book
The
is
trouble
out
is,
now,
though,
isn't it?
it's hard to tell though because his stuff was so Chicago oriented that if you didn't live in Chicago, you might not get a lot of the
Yeah.
jokes and the
true,
wisecracks
yeah.
and everything. But he may have been syndicated. Died very young. I just caught I was looking for something else on the internet and I saw his gravestone, and he was rather young when he died, as I recall.
It was a cartoonist in the early part of the century from Chester, Illinois. He came here, went to the Art Institute, and he started working for originally just for the American here, and then he went to New York, and he came up with the name was E.C., initial Seagar,
Seagar.
and he came up with Thimble Theater was the name of the comic strip in 1919. And about 1929, he introduced the sailor Popeye.
Popeye.
It became the star of the series.
Oh.
He died a young man, like in 1939.
If you cross the border from Missouri into Illinois downstate, I don't recall which particular highway it is. It must be his birthplace or near his hometown, because as you cross the border, there's a little park there dedicated to him with a statue of Popeye, and his name and a plaque describing what he did. It's not far from not far from Kaskaskia. It's way at the far southern part of the state. The
It's right
first-
on the Ohio River, isn't it?
Well, I crossed from Missouri into Illinois. It was at that crossing. So
Which river was that? So it's all the tributary of the Mississippi,
Old
anyway.
Man
isn't it?
River.
Yeah, Old Man River.
Old Man crossing the Mississippi. Yeah, but way in the southern part of the state. And I mean, I didn't make the connection till there's this little park right as you come across the state line. So we pulled in there, and here it's a statue of Popeye. It's dedicated to Seagar.
There's a section of Texas where it's a big spinach growing area. They have a big statue of Popeye there also. Anybody ever eat their spinach when they were a kid?
Popeye spinach, sure.
The best I
love
ever had was at, what's the name of the place with the ribs on Ohio Street?
Oh, the prime rib?
Prime Rib, yeah.
Lowry's. Lowry's. Cream spinach.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, they have cream spinach there.
They had a chopped up spinach with a vinegar flavor.
Yeah.
Delish.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, even if you don't like,
Lowry's, yeah. I couldn't think of it. Though.
well, if you don't like a vegetable, just put a lot of bacon in it.
They used to feed me there when I had the Post.
We're talking about, it's not a funny, but it was a comic strip. Dick Tracy, of course, originated in.
Well, he had a lot of humor in that, though.
Yeah.
Well, Disney. Well, how about Disney?
Walt
Right again.
Disney, yeah, that's
Walt,
right.
Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Walt Disney.
Native Illinoisan, yeah.
He moved to Kansas City when he was a kid, but he was born here. I guess his house is a historical marker over here.
I think so.
Walter Elias Disney.
They were just talking about that, or not talking about, but it was just in the paper, something about that house. Whether it's for sale or a national landmark or whatever
The
it
Brady
is.
Bunch house is on the block.
That's right.
The,
Yeah,
the
that
home
too.
where they did the exterior shots of the Brady Bunch is on sale in Los Angeles. They want something like $1.5 million for it. They say every day at least 500. I think they said 500 people come by it to take pictures.
Over there?
Yeah. And they didn't show. I mean, all they did were the exteriors. The inside of the house doesn't look like whatever they showed on the TV show, but it is the exterior shot of the Brady Bunch.
I wonder how Walt would feel about how his one little mouse grew into this tremendous empire of
Oh boy.
all these. Of course, ABC, ESPN they own. What else?
Well, I was going to say he understood that because there's that famous quotation, which I think they have a statue. They have these statues of Mickey Mouse, and Walt's quotation was, "And remember, it all started with a mouse."
Mm-hmm.
I know my father, John knew him. He had a kind of a unique way of putting things. I remember he came home once after work, and we were sitting watching Mickey Mouse, and he walks back and says to my mother, "This is great, Mickey Mouse. They've turned the youth of America into a group of rodent worshippers."
And he was cheated out of the rights to Oswald Rabbit,
That's
Oswald
right.
the Lucky Rabbit, by Margaret Winkler, and her husband name was something Mins. Anyway, he's coming back, back to the West Coast, where he and his brother opened up their studio, and the idea of the mouse came along, and he wanted to call him Mortimer originally,
Mortimer
but I think
Mouse.
his wife said Mickey would sound better or something like that. Of course, Mortimer became
They
Mickey's
later
rival.
had a
name later.
character. Yeah, the villain was Mortimer Mouse.
But the big breakthrough was they took this. It actually was the second cartoon, Steamboat Willie, and they post dubbed in the sound with it. Perfectly synchronized everything that happened. There was sound before on cartoons, but it would be like little effects, or some a word maybe a hollered here and there, or sound effects. But everything on it was totally coordinated to the sound, and they were playing for how many months at some theater in New York, with another bill, but people were coming just to see that. So that's what got him off the ground.
Yeah, it's amazing the technology how it's advanced. I mean, just in a matter of years.
Mm-hmm.
From
All your electronics, Tom.
yeah.
Phones.
The video games now. I remember when Pong first came out with the paddles and the little ball.
Pac-Man.
Now the video games, they look like they're actual tapes of actual incidents.
Yeah.
Remember when we had board games like Monopoly?
Sure.
Parchi. What else? What are the other ones?
Careers. Remember, I played a game called Careers.
Oh yeah.
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 Risk.
Risk. Oh, Risk.
Yeah, that was later. That came a bit later, though.
Guys
that was
like that.
the 60s. Risk, yeah.
How many territories you got in your armies, and
During the 60s, they said they should have changed the name to Rusk.
I had my brother cornered one time. He had about 3 territories left, and I'm, big me. I don't even look what he's got in his hand. I passed. He had all the cards he needed. He turned that one around. I guess I've been, I was kind of like a military genius, like their Fuhrer, I suppose.
Just about everybody started with checkers.
Right.
Sure.
Now they dance on it. And I never did understand chess. Never got into it.
Well, we had a friend of ours that we used to play chess when we were growing up, and he had a very unique strategy that was very successful. If he saw that he was about to lose or get checkmated,
the board over.
yeah, he would just accidentally knock the board over.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Gene.
Gene Sinise.
It's at the racetrack where I work. The guys would always come in and say, "Hey, Bill," he says, "your buddy is out there. Your buddies are out there picking horses." I knew right away what they were talking about, and I'd walk out and hear, and they were mostly, poor people actually that couldn't afford it, but they would be picking their horse on the. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. The board.
Ouija board?
Ouija board.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be picking their horses on the Ouija board, and I thought, oh, you really got to be sick to
Ouija
be
board?
doing that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's amazing, superstitious people are. There's a father and son that used to watch the Wednesday night fights. They were atheists. And there was a Hispanic boxer that before every round he blessed himself. And after the son saw this a few times, he said, "Dad, that guy goes like this," giving the sign of the cross, he blessing himself. He says, "Well, what does that mean?" And the father said, "Son, if you can't box, it don't mean shit." So much for sports superstitions, but it reminded me of horse players. I see them. They have race and sports books out in Vegas, and you see these guys. They've got all the tracks that are going. They're up on these giant screens in the sports books, and these horse players. They are there. They've got the sheets, the tout lines, and none of them look like they're ever making any money, but they're there constantly.
Yeah.
Had anyone ever seen the movie The Harder They Fall with Humphrey Bogart's last movie?
His last film.
It was like based on a Primo Carnera, story actually.
Nehemiah
And the
Persoff.
one before he's going for the big fight, he's there praying, and the 1 second says to him, "That only works if you know how to fight." So, making the sign of the cross.
I recently found out the meaning of the word Ouija. Ouija. Do you know what Ouija board means?
No.
What is it?
It's not Ouija. Everybody says Ouija, but it's actually Ouija.
Ouija.
O-U-I-G. It's the French word "oui" for yes, and the German word "ja" for yes.
Ja,
It's
really?
a combination of "oui" and "ja."
Oh yeah.
So it
And that-
becomes so.
yeah, I just heard this a week or two ago. I never knew that before.
It looks so exotic
That's where they
that
got
way.
Ouija.
Yeah,
is
Ouija,
the name.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned that,
Yeah.
John, because I often wondered
We
where they
and
came
ya.
from. I always thought it was some kind of
Yeah.
an Indian or
No, yeah,
Yeah.
Middle
something
East.
from the East, Arabic or something. No,
Yeah.
it's
Some
we,
guy, some
we
lawyer
and
invented it here, didn't he?
I'm sorry.
Wasn't there some lawyer in
That I don't know. I don't know the origin of it, but
Right
I
here
did
in
hear
US
what
of A?
Ouija actually, what the word
You know-
means. Yeah.
Well, again, talking about horse betting, there's a horse player that he cannot pick a winner no matter what he does. So he's driving home from the track and he sees a sign says Madam Olga, reader and advisor. And he says, "You know what? What have I got to lose?" So he goes inside, he sits down, she gazes into the crystal ball. She says, "I'm seeing the number 5. Does that have any meaning to you, the number 5? And he goes, "Well, yeah, I was born on the 5th month, 5th day. And now that I think about it, I'm going to be 55. Next, she says, "Well, that's it." So he waits. 5th month, 5th day, he's going to be turning 55. He goes to the track. He looks in the 5th race. He sees the number 5 horse. He says, "This is it. This is it." So he gets every penny that he can scrape together. He bets it on the number 5 horse in the 5th race, going to be 55. The race goes off, and guess what the horse came in? Fifth.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were
You
going
were
to come
gonna
up with the
come
name
up
of the horse too.
It was Khartoum. Or Beetlebaum. How's
Beetle
that?
Bomb, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, more
Humor in Chicago. Out of a couple. Oh, we
Go ahead, we got time.
Couple of sports, couple of funny events in sports. I was thinking back to the classic days in the 50s when Bill Veeck inaugurated the exploding scoreboard. and the Yankees were playing a weekend series in Chicago, and I think it was the Friday. This has been the great days of Casey Stengel. And when one of the Yankees, probably Mickey Mantle, hits a home run, Stengel had a half dozen guys in the upper deck with sparklers running around waving sparklers to
Well, he had them
simulate
come out of the
explosion.
dugout, too, like that.
Pardon?
Out of the dugout. They
Even-
came
even in the dugout?
Yankees did, yeah.
So I remember that. I also remember there was a Cub player, and I don't remember. One of the classic Cubs players from maybe the 40s, but I don't know his name. But he one of the guys that had a reputation for being a little bit daffy, like Dizzy
Who's that?
Dean. I don't know what the name of it was. But the story was he was coming in from second to third, and they're giving him slide. He was on second base, and there's a long fly ball. He's coming into third, and the coach is giving him the signal, slide, and he doesn't. He comes in standing up, and he's called out. And when he's going into the dugout, the coach says, I gave you the signal to slide. Why didn't you slide? I just bought some expensive cigars, and I had them in my back pocket. I didn't want to mash them.
That sounded like a line in The Natural. They use one like that. Yeah. Yeah, it could be.
I heard that story before. But I heard that story before the Natural movie. So it was a classic. I can't recall. I wasn't that big of a Cub fan, so I don't remember the name. But he was one of these guys had a reputation for being a little bit of a character.
Now, what year was that when they started the
Hank
scoreboard?
Sauer? Could it have been Hank Sauer? Was he a? He was a Cub
Bill
star.
Scourin?
No, Sauer.
Hank
S-A-U-R,
Sauer?
Hank Sauer.
With the Cubs.
Yeah,
The Cub.
yeah. Might have been Hank Sauer.
Outfielder, right?
Yeah.
Is he mayor of left field or something? Mayor of Wrigley Field or one of those fields?
One of them.
I forget who they had in center field, and Hank Sauer was in left field. The other guy was in the right field. They said every time the ball was hit, the center fielder would hear from both sides, you take it. You take it. Anyway, where were we? What year was that for the exploding scoreboard? Do you remember?
Well, I'm thinking it would have been probably 60. I don't
Yep.
think they didn't have it in
You're
59
right in the head,
when
yeah.
they won the series. I would say 60. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
We had
Early
a
60s.
When they were in the series.
we had a television, like we all did, black and white, and you would turn it on. It would take a while to warm up.
Yeah.
You would hear the sound first, you know.
Yeah. Right.
So my mom, we turned it on. It was maybe 2:30 in the afternoon. What time it was? There was all this exploding. My mom said, "Oh, somebody must have hit a home run." It turned. It was a war movie. So
And in those days, remember when you turned the television off, the screen would diminish down to a dot. Remember how the picture would diminish down to a dot before it would completely go off.
the outer limits.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day. About now, there's how many stations are on 24 hours a day. They
don't play
and
the
it
dish
wasn't. And it was in like even into the 70s where all the stations went off.
They would sign off. Yeah.
Yeah, cyanide, and then it's like on weekend they'd have the all night, or you'd have the late night
Oh, they
movie.
sign off, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in the 50s, they went off at like 11:30 or 12. I mean,
Right.
there was no late night television.
It's test pattern theater.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
the hum? Ooh.
Yeah, now
There was that Indian chief, and it looked like a windmill behind him. You know, what's that pattern?
How
Oh yeah,
far
yeah.
we've
They'd have
come.
the head of the Indian, yeah, and then the zigzag.
yeah, you'd have the
line.
sermonette, or
Today's
and the
meditation.
Star Spangled Banner.
They'd end with the national anthem, yeah.
Nobody signs off now, do they?
No.
Stations?
I don't think
I
they're
don't
all on.
think
They're
so.
all on 24 hours a day now.
Some radio stations might have to, by their licensing,
Yeah,
sign off
yeah,
with the sundown
Yeah,
or whatever.
Right, right.
Right, John?
We were.
Oh.
I was with my wife, my daughter, my son-in-law, and three of my grandkids in Las Vegas on the 4th of July. We went into a Walgreens and the Strip. My granddaughter wanted to buy a little American flag to wave around. They didn't sell any. And I said, you got any American flags? Usually, like even around here, they have them, 4th
Sure.
of July stuff.
Sure.
Well, we get a lot of foreigners here that we don't want to offend anyone.
Oh, okay.
The
That's
American flag is
Yeah, the American flag would
offensive.
be offensive. Yeah,
Offensive
for sure.
to someone from another
Of
country.
course, yeah. That's why they came here, because they didn't want to see the American flag. Yeah.
I mean, like I say, we were talking earlier. I mean, this is like getting beyond the point of This is getting to the point of revolt territory.
And I would have to say, you have to wonder if it's actually the immigrant who would be offended, or is it the idiot who makes the decision? No, or if we don't want to
Right.
risk offending anybody here.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
When I was
That's not as bad as having the United States flag made in China.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, all over the Taiwan.
When I was in Canada in the 1970s, when they still had TV stations that signed off, that was in 79, I believe. I always would stay up late because they would have "O Canada," the Star Spangled Banner, and a couple of the stations would end with "God Save the Queen." So they covered everybody. They made sure everybody was happy when they signed off.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Is it true?
Yeah, they had this really elaborate thing from England with the Queen at Parliament, with the crown and every really elaborate ceremony. And then they would run, of course, for the Americans right across the border. I was in Toronto. They would have the Star Spangled Banner and, of course, "O Canada," but not just one national anthem. They played all three.
Yeah, it's funny. We go play with the.
It looks
Is it
like
break?
who's going to do the
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the end of another one of our half-hour stanzas here on Meet the Chicago Historians at the John DeVita Broadcast Center. We'll be right back.
Well, friends, it's that time of the year again when you want to check your roof, siding, and gutters and make sure they're in great shape in case we have any bad weather. You may want to check the roof, siding, and gutters on your home and make sure that they are in good shape. You don't want mold or mildew in your attic or crawl space, or drip, drip, drip on the ceilings in your rooms, or have your walls damaged by leaky gutter or bad siding. So don't have double expense. Sooner or later, you're going to have to get it repaired. So why not call Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Mike Besh will drive over in his shiny red truck with ladders on top, and Mike will look over your roof, siding, and gutters and give you an estimate and go from there. So once again, don't have double expense. Call Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters for a free estimate at area code 630-616-1359. That's Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Call today for a free estimate. That's Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters, 630-616-1359 for a free estimate. 630-616-1359. Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our July edition of Meet the Chicago Historians. We're here celebrating a historic event, the 80th birthday of our patron, the head of the John DeVita Broadcasting Center, one of our great radio broadcasters, John DeVita. We've been marking John's birthday in this month of August. So let me turn the microphone back to our moderator, Jack Ryan.
That sounds like a good idea. John, come on out here a minute, will you? He's in the control room.
Yeah.
He's controlling everybody.
Go
Here
ahead,
in our
Jack.
underground
He's got
bunker
these
right
little
now.
helmets he puts on us, and we're controlled just like robots.
Go
John,
ahead. Go ahead, Jack.
can you come out here and talk to you a little?
All right, just a second.
We're going to be joined by John DeVita
Yeah. The one, the only
here in the underground
JDV.
command bunker.
Yeah,
So-
what's up?
You're a Chicago boy, born and bred, right?
Yeah, I was born and raised at Addison and Western, down by Lane Tech High School.
Where's it?
Yeah,
Where?
Addison and Western. Addison and Oakley is where I grew up at, down by
Okay.
Lane Tech High School.
Now, where'd you go to school?
I went to kindergarten through fourth grade at Bell School, Alexander Graham Bell School on Oakley Avenue. And then I went fourth grade to eighth grade at St. Andrew's School at Addison and Paulina. That's where I began my radio broadcasting career, was at
St. Andrews?
St. Andrews. And then I went to high school at St. Benedict's High School at Irving and Leavitt.
We're getting ahead of ourselves when you said that's how you started your broadcasting career at St. Andrews?
That's right.
How's that?
I was an altar boy at St. Andrews. And this one Sunday I was serving Mass, and the 10 o'clock Mass was over, and I see this guy running around the altar carrying microphones and microphone cables and setting up all kinds of stuff. And I said to him, sir, I says, can I ask you what you're doing? He said, oh, we're getting ready to broadcast the 12 o'clock Mass, the high Mass at 12 o'clock. And I says, oh, is that right? And I kind of hung around him a little bit, and before you knew it, I was helping him stretch the cables out and hooking up the equipment, and he and I got to be very, very dear friends. And I was with Joe Pelletier right up to the day he died.
Who's that?
His name was Joe Pelletier, and the radio station was WFJL-FM, and it stood for Frank J. Lewis. And Frank Joe Lewis donated the radio station to the CYO for them to broadcast all the CYO events, basketball, football.
The Golden Gloves was big.
That's right. Exactly, Tom. Yes. In fact, my business partner, because my business is J&R Communications, my business partner, Bob Holmes, his father was wrestling, or it was at the Golden Gloves, and that was held at St. Andrew's Gymnasium. And then, after I graduated from St. Andrews, and then Joe and I, we went to. I helped Joe do a lot of remote broadcasting at Ravinia, at the Tampa, the Bell, the band shell, the band shell downtown.
No Monte Fiore?
No. And then we went to the Aragon Ballroom and broadcast the Chicago. Next door to the Tribune Tower, I forget the name of the place now, but we went all different places. And anytime we went to do a remote broadcast, I was with Joe.
So you got a lot of years in radio, really?
Yes.
Here I thought you just started with Joe Gentile.
No.
How did you get associated with Joe?
Well, how it happened is I was doing I before I even got involved with Joe, I wired up a lot of radio stations out in Crystal Lake. It used to be WAIT AM 850. I wired that studios up out there, and then WLIP in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I wired that station up, and one day I happened to be turning the dial, and I come to 1530, and I heard WJJG and where they were located. So one day I had to go to a place which was right across the street from the studios to buy TV antenna equipment, amplifiers and wire and all the goodies, because we were wiring up condominiums for Zatel. And I said to the guy there, I said, "Do you know where there's a radio station?" He said, "Yeah, right across the street, right up there. That's in that apartment building there." So I went up there and walked up and went in by the door, and this old grumpy guy, comes to the door, and he says, "What can I do for you?" And I says, "Is this a radio station here?" "Yeah, it is." And I says, "Well, my name is John DeVita," and I says, "I'm quite involved and interested in radio broadcasting. I just wanted to come up there to see the studios." So he took me in. Actually, the studios was in an apartment. It was a condominium building, or apartment building.
Where's this on St. Charles Road?
Yes, 5629 St. Charles Road. Mm-hmm. So he takes me in, and the one bedroom was the main studio. The other bedroom was the production studio, and then the office was the front room, and then they had a kitchen and all that. So as I'm talking to him, I had mentioned to him that he had a partner phone system, And I said, oh, I says, I see you have a partner phone system. And he says, what's that? I said, you know, the kind of phone system you got there. I said, if you ever need any work done on your phone system, I says, I'm educated on how to work it. So we talked back and forth, and I told him that I met Wally Phillips and Clark Weber, and did and I told him about the different radio stations that I had wired up and all that. So okay, I gave him my card, and we shook hands, and that was the end of that. I went back to the truck, and I went on to the job that I was doing. Well, on March the 1st, the year 2002, was a Friday, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang. And I picked it up. I says, hello, J&R Communications. He says, can I speak to John DeVita? I says, this is John DeVita speaking. John, this is Joe Gentile, and I recognize his voice. I said, yeah, Joe, what can I do for you? He says, we got a problem with our phone system here. And he says, you told me you know all about these phone systems. He says, we have a phone here that's not working. He says, and I want to know if you can come over and take care of it. And I says to him, well, Joe, I tell you, I says, at 10 o'clock this morning, I lost my mother because she passed away on March the 1st of the year 2002. And I says, I'm waiting to go to the funeral home to make arrangements. Well, that's a hell of a way of starting off a new customer, you know, just like that, you know. So I says, however, Joe, I says, I can be there tomorrow morning, which was Saturday morning. I says, what seems to be the problem? I don't know, hey, there's a phone here that's not working and we can't get calls on the air. I said, all right, I'll be there first thing tomorrow morning to take care of it. So while I'm waiting for my sister to call me to make the arrangements, I go down. I lived over on Melvina at that time, 4241 Melvina. I went down the basement and I got all phones, cards, cords, whatever I thought I would need. Saturday morning, got up, got dressed. I flew down to the studios. I went up there and I says to the engineer, I says, "What? You got a problem with a phone?" Yeah, this phone right here. He says, "We can't get calls on it." So I tested the phone and everything. So I went down to the truck, got a new phone, came up, plugged it in, and it worked. Well, after I got it working and got everything all put back together again and all set, I went and sat, which was the front room, and. Here comes Joe walking down the hallway in his pajamas and a bathrobe on. And he says, come on, DeVita, I'll show you what the problem is. I says, Joe, I says, you don't have to. I says, I says, it's all taken care of. What are you talking about? I says, it's all done, Joe. I says, he had a bad phone, and I says, it's all taken care of. Well, how much do I owe you? I says, well, I tell you what. I looked up, kind of raised my head, and I looked up to the ceiling, and I says to him, well, Joe, I said, tell you what, I'll make you a deal. How about 25 years of your friendship? And he looked at me, and he says, what? I says, how about 25 years of your friendship? Okay. And he says, he says, how much do I owe you? I says, 25 years of your friendship. Well, he shook hands, and he was just so happy because he didn't have to spend any money. Right, John?
Absolutely.
The problem was solved.
Yeah, the problem was solved, and then it worked, and I just, carried on.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks later, he calls me up again. He says, next time you're in the area, he says, I want to talk to you. So I says, okay, I'll be there in about an hour. So I left the house and drove up to the studios. We sat down, and he says, I understand you're quite involved in radio broadcasting. Yes, I am. So he says, okay. He says, I tell you what. He says, I don't have a station manager, and he says, I want to make you station manager. And then one thing led on to another thing, so I became station manager and chief engineer for WJJG. And,
what year was that now?
2002.
So you were with them about 9 years, or?
Yeah. Yeah, and I went with him. In fact, my sister just told me yesterday that they got the Italia Fest up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they wanted to go up there to do a remote up there, and I went up there 4 times. I met with the gentleman up there that's in charge of the Italia Fest. His name was Paul Ionello, and I went up there and I met with him. He showed me where to set up at, and we were 4 consecutive years. I went up there to do remote broadcasts on a Friday afternoon. So,
got to explain here for people who don't know. Joe Gentile who passed away 2011.
That's
what,
right.
What date was that now?
September the 10th, 2011.
We were doing a remote that
Yeah,
day
we were
at the Fire Museum.
Yep.
5218 Southwestern Avenue.
Right.
They're open this open house Saturday, 2 to 10, 10 to 2.
10 to 2.
It would be odd hours, wouldn't it? And anyway, that day, but Joe was the guy. I think it was it Chet Kopic gave him the name the Baron of Barrington. He had the dealership. What kind of was it? A
Well,
Dodge or Plymouth? Or?
It was a Chrysler Plymouth dealer on Northwest Highway in Barrington.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he gave him the title, the Baron of Barrington.
And he was a St. Ignatius graduate.
Oh yes, Joe.
And Loyola University.
That's right. Joe Gentile went to St. Ignatius. He built a gymnasium for St. Ignatius,
Right.
a beautiful gymnasium over there. And he also built the sports center, the Joe Gentile Sports Center for Loyola University out at their North Campus.
And
Officer
his name is
Road.
then St. Ignatius also.
Yes, right. Yes.
Because I was passing by there around Roosevelt Road with a young kid, and we're in that special employment for housing. He looks over and says, "Oh, the Gentile Center." I said, "No, that's Gentile."
That's right. Yes. Yes.
I didn't even hadn't met him, but I knew the name.
Yes.
Gentile. And Joe, he used to look at me and go, "Irish, huh? Irish, yeah," all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm half a German, so like Tom Hagen, our Godfather. But
Joe Gentile had a post, the Joe Gentile American Legion post, and he had announced on his morning show that he was going to get the Bob Hope Award at a Sunday at this Lady of Pompeii on Lexington Boulevard. And he kept talking about it and talking about it, and all of a sudden my wheels start spinning. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, we got to do something. So I went out to Our Lady of Pompeii, and I got a hold of the pastor, and I told him who I was, and that Joe Gentile was going to get this award, this Bob Hope Award. So I went there. I got there at 6 o'clock Sunday morning. I set up all the microphones up on the altar by the where they do the sermon, where they do the readings and all that. I set all the stuff up, and I'm sitting behind a post. So at the 10 o'clock Mass comes, the guy from the church gets up and he says, "Welcome everybody to Our Lady of Pompeii. Today is a special day. We're going to be giving out an award called the Bob Hope Award." And he says, and we also want to welcome Joe Gentile's radio station, WJJG, to the church. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting behind a post, and I could see Joe, but Joe couldn't see me. And he's looking behind, looking. He couldn't find me. And then after the Mass was over with, I walked up and I congratulated him, and he says, "Davida," he says, "you're just too much. I just can't believe." And I have that tape right here in my control room right here.
no, WJJG was that 1430?
1530.
1530,
yeah. Right alongside of you.
Huh?
Right alongside of you, yeah.
Oh, there it is, right there. Look,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Mhm.
it's right there.
And
And that's
then-
basically why we're all here right now.
Yeah, so I was, and he always wanted to do remotes. Oh my God, remotes. I got sick of listening to the word remotes. We went to the Copper Kitchen at Route 83 of St. Charles Road. We went to the 8th and 8th Cigar Store on St. Charles Road. We went to Giacchino's on St. Charles Road. We set up out in the parking lot, and the 3 Hours restaurant here in Harwood Heights. We set up over there and did several broadcasts, and I always wanted to go out and do.
That big restaurant way out west. We did a
What is it now?
there once.
Which one is that, John?
An Italian restaurant.
Oh, Giacomo's.
Yeah.
Yeah, Giacomo's in Mount Prospect. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the
And-
place I met you at? I can't think of the name of the town.
I don't remember. Jack.
You don't remember?
I've been to so many remotes that I don't even know.
I
At that
started
time.
calling in, and you recognize my name, and
Yeah.
John
But,
gives me a greeting like I'm an old long lost cousin or
Yeah.
something.
But then another time he called me up. I was in fact living here at this house in Norwich, and he called me up. He says, "DeVito," he was always calling me DeVito. "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm cutting my grass." "Well, come on over and pick me up. I want to go to Wrigley Field." So he says, "Bring the kid with you," meaning Oscar, the kid that lives with me upstairs. So we went and picked him up, and we went to Wrigley Field, and it was a night where they were featuring Frank Sinatra Jr. So when I found out that that he was going to be with Frank Sinatra Jr., I brought my little tape recorder with, and I met Frank Sinatra Jr. and I recorded their interview, and I also have that. And then when Wally Phillips died, I did a big hour-and-a-half program on Joe Gentile and Wally Phillips. Anytime Wally Phillips would have where they were making like a fundraiser, Joe would always donate a car to the for the event where they could sell raffle tickets, and then the money would go for the needy children.
Well, how did this historians show start? That was on the WJJG, right?
It was live while we were.
Ask Bill.
Yeah, we were live. We were live because I had a phone line from this studio right here, from my control room here, right back to WJJG. And Bill Klugeman, Ken Little, God rest his soul, Vic Rini, and a couple other guys. We all start talking about we should do a show about the history of Chicago, and that's how it was born. Right, Bill? Bill is Bill.
Emilio?
Yeah.
Tony Emilio?
These are the gentlemen that gave.
Cop Talk show.
Gus Gustino. They were all. And we started that show, and it started right here at this table, right here. I had this table out in the middle of the floor, and I had 4 microphones set up, and we were live right from 12 to 2:30, live on the radio until Joe passed away. And then after Joe passed
You
away,
didn't have this fancy setup then?
No. This came afterwards. And that's when you got involved, Jack, when you became became moderator. Yeah. So, yes, radio broadcasting, gentlemen, has been in my blood since I was about 5 or 6 years old.
How about Cop Talk? Was that on there very long, or?
Cop Talk was on WJJG for quite a few years.
Was that there when you started?
Yes.
Oh, it was, huh?
Yes.
I didn't hear about it till 2005.
Yeah. Okay. Cop Talk made WJJG. That was the #1 program on our.
Was that the
station.
most listened to show too, wasn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cop
2 hours long, Saturday morning.
Yeah, 10 to 12. Yeah. And it was very interesting. Yep.
You had a sports show before, and then you had Don afterward. Don Figarelli came afterward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was Spears on Sports.
Right.
With Laurie Spears. And then Cop Talk, and then Don Figarelli. And then after that was 2 lawyers that...
Who?
2 lawyers that came on. They were brothers. They came on at 1 o'clock. I forget what their...
Laz.
Yeah.
So I can't think of the names now.
Yeah.
2 lawyers. They're in some. They signed some off Sunday night now. There's some real late show. They're on broadcast.
Yeah.
And you had Rich too.
Richie Z. Yeah.
He had the. What do you call it? Motor City Madhouse.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That was a good show he had.
Yeah.
What was the name of that lawyer that used to come here? They advertise now on the radio a lot and on TV. I can't think of his name, John.
He came here?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of the outfit.
But, yeah.
He was the one that was the spokesman for him. And it is now, too.
Oh, that restaurant you're not talking about Spavone, Tony Spavone's, out on Bloomingdale.
That's the one I'm.
Yeah.
That's the restaurant I'm.
Yeah, Tony Spavone's. Yeah.
We did a show there.
So I've like I said, ladies and gentlemen, and you gentlemen here at the panel, I've been involved in radio broadcasting since I loved radio broadcasting since I was 5 years old, but I really got started at St. Andrew's Church with Joe Pelletier, and then when Joe Pelletier got married, I was in his wedding reception, and then he had a little child, and they lived out on Caldwell Avenue, right just off of Devon Avenue, just east of Devon Avenue on Caldwell, and one day after WFJL went off the air because of political problem because there was somebody had mentioned about Joe McCarthy up in Wisconsin. A comment was made, and the Cardinal Stritch, or whoever was a cardinal, stripped Bishop Shield of all his everything. He took the radio station away from him. They took the CYO station away from him. The Blind Dog Association, everything. And the station went off the air as WFJL. And then Joe worked for. He was a cameraman with Channel 11. In about 6 months or so, he was. He was going to work. His wife came out, held the baby in her arms. He gave the kid a kiss. He gave his wife a kiss. Went down the steps and, amen. And
we're talking about John, and John's given us his whole history
Yeah.
and about what he did. But, and I will add this, along with that, he was one of the founders of the 511 Club, is
Yep.
what we call it now, and that was a big job because they followed all fire and later on police, and they would come up with coffee
Yep.
and
I was
rolls and
when I was
John was
I
the
was
big
with
head of that.
I'm with the 511 Club right now. 59 years. I'm with the 511 Club, and back in the mid 60s or 70s, whatever it was, I came up with an idea of a canteen truck, and now we've got three of them. Now we cover North Side, which is over at Elson and Roscoe, engine 106. We have one out at 100 and something in the Doty, engine 80. And then we have one that's a spare rig that is kept at the shops.
Well, we met January of '68 out at 47th Indiana, big fire.
Yep.
It was one of the real cold. I was just on
Yeah.
the street my first week.
Yeah.
I wound up 1099 means by yourself, so I wound up with the traffic control a night. So he handed me. I didn't realize it was him. It was a hot chocolate or coffee, probably hot chocolate.
Yeah.
You had them both, right?
Yep.
But no schnapps.
Yep.
Didn't have any schnapps.
In
know-
the summertime like now, we have Gatorade, cold water, cold refreshments along with coffee. Then in the wintertime, we have hot chocolate, hot coffee, and then we have an agreement with all the fast food companies, the McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King. And if the firemen are going to be out on a fire for any length of time, we call them and they donate sandwiches or food for the firemen.
You know, the listeners, I'd like to just tell you something about John DeVita. Every year, the Chicago Fire Department has a very beautiful and elaborate memorial ceremony. I believe that's Rose Hill Cemetery.
That's right, Rose Hill.
On the north side of Chicago, near the lake.
Yeah.
And John goes out there probably at not at the crack of dawn, but long before the crack of
4
dawn.
o'clock in the morning.
And sets up all of the public address systems, strings the wires, sets up the speaker system, the podium, so that the fire department can honor their fallen heroes.
That's right.
It's a beautiful military-style
Yeah.
ceremony. And he does this every year at no compensation.
Yep.
Does this all by himself, and
I've
then
done
has
it-
to take it all down when it's finished.
I've
in
been
the-
doing
in
it
the-
for
in
about
the morning.
about the last 18 years. Oscar comes with me and he helps me run the wires over the trees across the road, and I get there at 4 o'clock in the morning and set all the equipment up.
It's a beautiful ceremony
Yes,
every
it
year in
is.
September.
Yes. So, I tell you, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen who's listening, there's two things that are dear to my heart. First of all, radio broadcasting, and the second is Chicago Fire Department. If I was to put them on a teeter-totter to see which one would balance out, it would be a complete balance, because I love both. I love broadcasting. I love the fire department. In fact, before I was married, Franklin McCormick. Franklin McCormick used to go up to the Wisconsin Dells up at the Uphouse restaurant, the broadcasts up there the whole month of July. And it was a fundraiser for Wisconsin Dells. And at that time it was my fiancée, Barbara. We would leave here at Friday afternoon, drive all the way up to the Dells, get a place to stay, and I would go and I would sit in front of him from the time he went on the air, 11 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock when he went off the air. And Franklin and I got to be very, very, very good friends.
Yeah.
And WGN.
How about Tommy Bartlett? He was around the.
Yeah, I met him a couple times
was-
too. He was with
He
his
was around the
brother.
Dells for a long time,
Yeah,
then, wasn't
yeah.
he? Oh yeah.
Dells.
I don't know.
Their duck-
Yeah, I know he was on television before here.
And
I used to see the sign that said Tommy Bartlett's Water Show. Remember?
Yeah.
Just before we go to break, there's something I just want to mention about Franklin McCormick. My father-in-law was a lieutenant on the Chicago Fire Department, Engine Company 56 over on Berry and Levitt. But there's one particular day he was detailed to Engine 78, which is over by Wrigley Field. So I went over there, and I just sat down, and the office called, "Hello, Ambulance 6. You have an inhalator, WGN 2501 Bradley Place." So the fireman said to me, "Come on, John, jump in the ambulance with us." So we went down Addison Street, got to WGN. Frank Bassani was by the door, and he's, "Come on, hurry," and we took the stretcher and the inhalator in and walked into the studios, and who was laying on the floor but Franklin McCormick. And we worked on him, and I helped carry Franklin McCormick out of the studios dead. It was just a sad day in my life.
John, I haven't seen anyone talk so much since Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Thanks for giving us sharing.
Yeah,
okay.
Thanks, John.
I had no idea you had all that time in radio. So, and this means that acting announcer.
And ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to John DeVita, our chief, the head of the John DeVita Broadcast Center, reminisce about his many, many years in broadcasting. We're celebrating John's 80th birthday this month. This is Meet the Chicago Historians. We'll be right back.
Well, friends, it's that time of the year again when you want to check your roof, siding, and gutters and make sure they're in great shape in case we have any bad weather. You may want to check the roof, siding, and gutters on your home and make sure that they are in good shape. You don't want mold or mildew in your attic or crawl space, or drip, drip, drip on the ceilings in your rooms, or have your walls damaged by leaky gutter or bad siding. So don't have double expense. Sooner or later, you're going to have to get it repaired. So why not call Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Mike Besh will drive over in his shiny red truck with ladders on top, and Mike will look over your roof, siding, and gutters and give you an estimate and go from there. So once again, don't have double expense. Call Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters for a free estimate at area code 630-616-1359. That's Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Call today for a free estimate. That's Besh Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters, 630-616-1359 for a free estimate.
We're back. This is our final segment of our July edition of Meet the Chicago Historians, marking John DeVita's birthday in this great, glorious month of July, the month of American independence. And here is our moderator, Jack Red. It's not his politics, Ryan.
Okay. Let's finish strong with this comedy thing about what's so funny about Chicago. We have two types of humor, basically, the intended and the unintended. Can we think of any unintended and not?
Well, before we get into that,
Okay.
well, it is on the subject of humor and Chicago humor. You know, I always tell people that there are three types of humor actually in Chicago. There's humor, there's police humor, and then there's Chicago police humor. And they have a competition every year at the Laugh Factory in Chicago to find Chicago's funniest cop. And 2 years ago, I won first place. Last year, I came in second place. But the guy that won first place, he's black. So the way I look at it is I've been Chicago's funniest white cop for the last 2 years. You know, it's interesting when you ask people about what attributes make a good police officer, you never really get the answers that really make someone a good cop. You hear comments like, well, you got to be a tough guy. You got to be able to know all about firearms. You got to be able to drive. And nothing could be further from the truth. Joe Wambach, an author and also a television producer and produced some movies. He was a retired...
Centurions,
right.
The Blue Knight,
right.
what else?
He's a whole bunch
Wire
of...
Boys, yeah.
Best-selling author. He was on a show once, and they asked him, what makes a good cop? And he said three things, and I am going to echo that sentiment, and I've never gotten any arguments from anyone in law enforcement. And one is a great deal of common sense. If you lack common sense, it's not the job for you, because if you stay strictly to the rule book and the laws, it's not you're not going to wind up in a good situation. The next is a sense of compassion. If you're not compassionate and don't feel for someone, the story that I tell is when I first went to the 2nd District, there was an old timer, a black guy, and it was like my first or second arrest, and I put the guy in the cell and he closed the door. And I always remember what he told me. He says, you know what, McKenna? He says, I've been doing this a long time, but every single time I put somebody in that cell, I say to myself, there but go for the grace of God go I.
Yeah.
You never think that you're better than anybody else. And then the last thing is a good sense of humor. Now, why a good sense of humor? Humor is and laughter is a excellent emotional release. A lot of people are kind of baffled when you see newsreels of some very tragic incident, and you see police officers there, and they're laughing. And you say, look at these guys. That's disgraceful, them laughing. Well, it's an emotional release, because if you're not laughing about something, and I've been in many situations like this, if you're not laughing about it, you're going to be crying about it. And laughter is a much better emotional release than crying. I'm going to give you just a short story about Chicago police humor. My brother and I we both play with the pipes and drums of the Chicago Police Department. We were downtown at some event, and we saw the head of the Chicago office of the Secret Service that my brother and I both dealt with. As a matter of fact, his father was a Chicago police officer. And because my brother, he retired out of special events, they ran the presidential motorcades, and I rode the motorcycles, escort bikes for the presidential motorcades. So he introduced us he says, this is a special agent in charge from Washington, D.C. So he introduced us, and he said, oh, both of you guys are in the bagpipe band, huh? And you're both Chicago police officers? I said, yes. He said, well, I bet your parents are really proud of you. And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I said, they are. They're both passed away. I said, but we learned our work ethic from our father. My father worked 7 days a week. He worked nights, he'd get dressed up, always drove a brand new Cadillac. He worked all night long, came home in the morning. So he said, gee, Tom, what did your dad do? And I said, he was a pimp. So the guy from Chicago says to him, it's a joke. And he goes, well, I realize it's a joke, but I don't think it's funny. To use your father as a brunt of humor, I'm sure he was a good man. I says, you know what? You're right. He was a good man, and I apologize. So he said, well, what did your dad really do? I said, he was a crack dealer. So he turns and walks away. I said, hey. I said, wait a second. He says, that's not funny. I said, he was a male prostitute. He says, hey, welcome to Chicago. That's not funny. I said, hey, we'll tell you what's funny. And that is my definition of Chicago police humor.
Yep.
Come on, Jack. Now it's your turn.
Is that contest this year also? That
Yeah, I haven't heard the dates.
are you entering?
Oh yeah.
I was hoping to enter it one day. If I could walk, maybe I'd try. But they people tell me I'm funny, but looks aren't everything. So you can't.
Let me ask you this: who are the funniest chaplains?
Oh, the Father Dan Brandt and Rabbi Moshe Wolf.
Absolutely.
Oh, I get them in the routine that I did last year. I got both of them. I told them.
Who's it? Rabbi Wolf and who else?
Father Dan Brandt.
Who?
Dan Brandt.
Oh, Brent. Oh, Brent. Yeah.
Yeah. I got both of them. I was talking about the uniqueness of Chicago, and again, Chicago police humor. And I said, we're lucky to have Father Brandt and Rabbi Wolf as our police chaplains. I said, you won't find chaplains like this in Iowa. As a matter of fact, I don't know how well Rabbi Wolf would do in Iowa, because as far as I know, they don't have Jews in Iowa. One thing you will never hear driving around the state of Iowa: hey, Maury, hurry up and slap them hogs. We're going to be late for temple.
Tom was there a few times. I did a little pro wrestling on the side in the 70s there for about 6 years part-time. And I was working assigned in 1986 to 90 to the Chicago Lawn Station on 63rd Street, which was basically a quiet residential, mostly in the district. Big district, But it's like about second only to the 16th district in size area-wise, which 16 is about the size of Seattle, Washington, area-wise, so figure it that way. Anyway, we got a new commander who was kind of brought up through the youth division, and Bob Davino was in the office. He was driving around one day. He must have told him that I did some wrestling, because I was making some copies, and so the commander comes over and says to me, Oh, Ryan, you wrestled some of that pro stuff, huh? Yeah. What was your name? What did you weigh? What did you wrestle? And then he says to me, tell me this, is that stuff phony or what? So I said to him, put it to you this way, Commander, it's the second phoniest profession I was ever associated with. And he goes, what's the first? It was a TWA right over his head, And here's the guy that's given the leader of men, right? It was done as a joke also, but I think that'd be a little chuckle. Everybody else got a chuckle out of it.
Reminds me of Ronald Reagan, who always said that politics is probably the second oldest profession in the world, and it bears many resemblances to the first.
Advertising, right?
Yeah, advertising.
Yeah, that's a good one.
When you say it's a TWA, that doesn't mean anything either. There's no more. How long have they been gone? Trans World Airlines.
Yeah. Pan Am.
It's the classic. There's a lot of units that they meet, once a month for breakfast, districts, and what the classic line is when you retire and people say, do you miss it? And I say, well, I don't miss the circus, but I miss the clowns. And that's all the stories they talk about, and everything, that you mentioned it's all the humorous stuff that you did.
Would it be true that big city police officers, many of them can go through an entire career without ever firing their sidearm in a combat situation?
Oh, yeah, the vast majority.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't.
Yeah, very few.
I was going to say the majority probably never are in a
or in a shooting as well.
Anger,
as a matter of
fire
fact,
a shot in anger.
Our moderator and myself were involved in a shooting once. That was a long time ago. As a matter of fact, I was just thinking about that the other day. In the climate that we're in right now, it was totally justified at the time. in the climate we're in right now, I'm not sure what would have happened in that same situation.
If you read about it in the Sun Times, it was nothing like what happened down either. But the Southwest News Herald had the story right. Remember?
Are you suggesting that the press was inaccurate?
I was being lazy anyway. They didn't even inquire
a
into
major newspaper would be inaccurate in its reporting of the news. I'm surprised to hear that.
Is that supposed to be a joke?
It's kind of like that TWA.
A lot of what people think of as police humor is this real put down stuff like which I don't believe that stuff's very funny myself. When you do run into someone when is in a very sad situation and make fun of that, you know what I'm saying? That to me isn't humor.
No.
That's cheap shots.
No, there's nothing funny about that.
Remember, it was you and Lonnie Johnson were housing. Lonnie Johnson, one of the veteran black officers in 2, had been in the Park District originally, and it was on a signed complaint or something. This guy was one of these people that never drew a sober breath, and they says, "What were you drinking?" And he says, "Scotch," which itself is just funny.
Oh yeah, well, right. They have sometimes those people have some of the funniest lines. One guy told me, he said, I said, you're pretty drunk, and he says I never stop drinking. He says, if I'm up, I'm drinking. I said, really? I said, how come? He says, because I stop drinking, it costs me too much money to get drunk again. I says, well, that's pretty sound logic. You just stay drunk constantly.
Or the old saying is, I never knew he drank till I saw him sober.
Yeah. There's the old story about Lady Astor, who was a bitter political enemy of Winston Churchill. And they were going at it at some gathering at one of the English country houses. And finally, Churchill had enough, and he said, "Madam, you're ugly." And she said, "Winston, you're drunk." He said, "Yes, I am, madam, but tomorrow I'll be sober."
Right. But you'll still be...
fill the blank of the
yeah. No, that's interesting, though. I notice this, when you're on a job and I'm sure it's the same with your job, Bill, your first job, not your police job, but isn't it true that when you're around a job like this long enough, you can look at a story on the news, whatever, especially if it involves some of our political people, and you can tell when it's a real BS story and when it's not.
Exactly.
You can't prove anything, but I mean, why was it, for example, why was a certain prominent state legislator and later, I guess, top officer of the state, why did he get robbed at 10 minutes to 2 Sunday morning around 47th in Indiana? What else is over there?
Yep.
A lot of working girls, I know.
Whenever we have some type of incident, fire, whatever, crash, whatever, we get back to our quarters and the front phone, which was what you call a one-way, just incoming calls, would ring, and the guy would say, I could hear him, he say, "And what paper you're from? Where are you from?" It was the media looking for a story. And right away, "Hey, Chief, come on over." I'd get on that phone and I'd say, "I'm only going to tell you what little bit happened because I don't want it to get blown out. The family doesn't know, blah, blah, blah." And that didn't even work. That didn't work. They would add their whatever you want to call it, and so I got to the point where the phone would ring and I'd just tell the guy on watch, I'm not in. There's no comment anyway.
Well, talking about having people that don't have any sense of humor, I retired out of major accident investigation, and everything we did was very media worthy, and they used to call sometimes 2 or 3 times a night. The city news or their desk could call and say, is anything going on? And my response was always, yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you called. We just had a semi-tractor trailer full of wigs and toupees turn over on the Dan Ryan. He said, "Oh, really? Do you have the details?" I said, "No, we're still combing the area." Well, what? What did you say? Never mind.
Were you? Did you work with Harvey Rubin on that?
No.
Do you know Harvey?
No. Yeah.
Who's that?
He retired. Harvey Rubin. You know him?
I don't know.
He's a character, but he retired as the commander of that. Oh boy.
A commander?
Well, whatever he was.
It doesn't make him my friend.
Captain, lieutenant, whatever Harvey was. He used to be a trooper, and he was known as not too neat of a person, you know, kind of guy you'd like to work with, but not be seen at the summer dance with him. Sorry, Harvey.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to have about 3 minutes to do a story that has nothing to do with Chicago and nothing to do with humor, but it relates to one of our country's greatest presidents.
What's that?
120 years ago, in this month of July, on July 1st, this country was at war with Cuba, and it was on that morning that a regiment known as the 1st United States Volunteer Cavalry charged, 1st United States Volunteer Cavalry, better known as the Rough Riders, charged up what was called San Juan Hill. There were actually two hills there. The first one that they charged was Kettle Hill. There was a huge kettle at the top of it, and that's how it got its name. And the adjoining hill was San Juan Hill. They occupied both of the hills. It was the most dramatic victory of our army in the war with Spain. And the leader of that charge would, 2 years later, would become Vice President of the United States, and then in the following year, President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt. And I just wanted to talk about it because, as I say, it's the 120th anniversary. And his charge at San Juan Hill was one of the bravest and most dramatic events in American history. It's sometimes treated as a kind of a comic opera affair. If you remember the movie Arsenic and Old Lace, they had Teddy Roosevelt Brewster, the brother who thought he was Teddy Roosevelt, and he would go running up the stairs shouting, "Charge."
Digging the Panama Canal in the basement?
Oh, yeah. The Oregon goes to Australia. But actually, charging against an entrenched enemy who's on the high ground, and the Spanish were dug in. They had rifles that were of better quality than what the American troops were using. They had machine guns. They had been armed and trained by the Germans that had one of the most professional armies in the world. And they even had German advisors with them. And to charge an entrenched enemy from below, to go up a hill, military historians will tell you, is one of the most courageous events that can take place. They're called the Rough Riders, but their horses had been left behind in Florida due to the snafu of our logistics in the war. The only one who was mounted was Teddy Roosevelt, and he eventually had to dismount. He was recommended for the Medal of Honor for his heroism. But because he was Teddy Roosevelt and was such an outspoken man, he was criticizing the way the War Department had mishandled the war. Our soldiers, after the battle was won, after the war had been won, they couldn't get the troops back to the United States in a timely fashion. Our guys were coming down with malaria and all the other diseases that were prevalent in Cuba at that time. And he criticized the War Department to his friends. He had friends in high places. He had been the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, one of the highest posts in the government. He resigned that to fight as a lieutenant colonel with his volunteer regiment. And on the day of the charge, he was promoted to full colonel because one of the other officers had been unable to fulfill his duties. And Leonard Wood, if you know the Fort Leonard Wood, that was named for the man who had been the regimental commander, he had moved up to brigadier general, and so Theodore Roosevelt became colonel of the Rough Riders and led the charge. He didn't get the Medal of Honor in 1898 because of the political distrust of the War Department, but 100 years later, I think it was in 1997, it was rectified, and it was President Bill Clinton who formally awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously.
Who was?
Bill Clinton was president at the time.
Who?
Bill Clinton. Yeah,
I forgot about him.
This is what's called credit where credit is due, ladies and gentlemen. To his credit, he presided at the ceremony in which Colonel Theodore Roosevelt was awarded the Medal of Honor for heroism. He became one of our greatest presidents, one of the greatest figures in American history, and I just wanted to take a moment to honor him on our July edition of Meet the Chicago Historians.
Can I go a little further about Teddy
Sure.
Roosevelt?
Sure.
And you all know at the table here, my dog Kate. Kate is a rat terrier. We used to call them fox terriers. They call them rat terriers. And the big thing about it was when Teddy Roosevelt was president, he told the Streets and Sand or whatever it is, to tear down all of the obscene-looking stalls and animal, where they kept the horses and whatever other animals they had around the White House. Tear them down. We're gonna beautify this place. Blah blah blah. Well, in tearing them down, all the rats that were hiding there now converged on the White House, and Teddy Roosevelt, being the guy he was, had a lot of friends that had fox terriers at that time, and he brought them all in. He called everybody, bring your dogs in, and that's where they got the name Rat Terriers, because they got rid of the rats around the White House, and that's where they got the name, instead of fox, Rat Terriers. And I never knew that when I picked Kate,
But that same, with the Spanish-American War, someone in Congress named Teller put an amendment on tacked onto some bill
amendment.
saying we could never annex Cuba or
Right.
make it part of.
Yeah, because there had been, all during the 19th century, there had been talk of the United States annexing Cuba. Problem was that it was suspected that the Southerners wanted this because they wanted an additional slave territory, and that's why the Northerners would never go with it. But we didn't want the idea that we wanted the idea that we were fighting this war for a high-minded purpose, to free the Cuban people and not to just annex it for ourselves. But we did, of course, take the Philippines and Guam, which is today one of our most important bases in the Pacific, vital base. And it was in the context of it that we annexed the Hawaiian Islands. It was because of the war emphasis on expanding that the Hawaiian Islands were annexed in 1900. So America did acquire some very valuable pieces of property in the course of the war. And I just know that it was under Theodore Roosevelt that the White House became officially the White House.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that ordered that the stationery and all the references now officially be to it had previously been called the Executive Mansion, the President's Mansion, but everyone called it the White House, and he said, let's call it what the people call it. So it officially became the White House. Great president and a great American.
Well, and I do have to say that the dogs did not keep all the rats out of the White House.
Now that's Chicago humor.
How did this Panama Canal ever get in there anyway?
He always said, I took the canal zone and let Congress debate. And now while Congress debates, the canal goes on. It wasn't finished until Woodrow Wilson became president, but he's the man that engineered America acquiring the zone and building the canal, which Jimmy Carter so unwisely gave away.
Well, there
in
were
his presidency.
we had what they call the Panama Canal Zone,
Right.
and the people there, they were called them zone. They
Zoning.
had a sort of double
Zonians.
citizenship.
Yeah.
It was considered a territory, but it was all rented.
We had it in perpetuity. So
Right.
it wasn't flat out owned by the United States the way Guam or Wake or Midway are, but we had it in perpetuity. So that meant forever.
Right.
We never had to give it back.
Well, what
A
was
permanent lease.
I know that the time is running out
Yeah.
here, but briefly, well, what was his reasoning for doing that, for Carter, for turning it?
It was like a repudiation of Roosevelt, a repudiation of imperialism, that this was bad for America to acquire territory. It was felt that the people in Latin America would like us more, that if we give this back and get nothing in return, that we'll be beloved. I mean, all this, what I would say is nonsense. But it was essentially for that, and now of course, we have no control over that. We've
It was
lost
during the Carter administration
Jimmy
we
Carter.
gave it up. Why?
Jimmy Carter.
That's
We were just saying it was.
I'm just saying.
It was, goodwill,
Oh, yeah.
international goodwill, and
So now a Chinese company runs it.
Ronald Reagan was the most vocal opponent of it, but he was only former governor of California at the time.
Well, as we know, what a powerful president
Yeah.
Carter was.
But that was one of Teddy Roosevelt's great
Where
achievements.
they get recognized for the rest of eternity,
And
and that's probably one of them.
Up or down. Within the scale.
the reason Teddy Roosevelt built the canal was during the Spanish-American War, it became apparent that we needed to shift ships from the Atlantic to the Pacific or back and forth, and to have them go all the way around the Cape of South America was a real difficult proposition. We needed a quick way to move our Navy back and forth.
Why didn't they just take an airplane, Ollie?
Well, Stanley, because they didn't have airplanes.
And the canal runs north and south,
Right.
not east and west.
It actually,
it's
zigzags
kind of
around.
weird.
Yeah.
I used to wonder why they go all the way around the horn instead of cutting through that little passageway, where there's probably unnavigable,
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, on that happy note, now that we know all about the Panama Canal and Teddy Roosevelt, what else do we know now? Police humor, fire humor. Oh, Saturday, the 28th, Fire Museum of Greater Chicago.
Great place to
10
visit.
a.m. to 2 p.m., 5218 South Western Avenue.
Parking is good.
Plenty of parking, right?
Yes.
Admission is free, but donations are accepted, right?
Whoa, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, lady-
T-shirts for sale.
Anybody? Okay, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the July edition of Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center. We once again wish a very, very happy 80th birthday to our patron and impresario, John DeVita. On behalf of Jack Red Ryan and all of our panel, thanks for listening. We'll be back in August with a special edition, a special remote edition of Meet the Chicago Historians. Have a great summer. Goodbye.
You have been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, July the 23rd, the year 2018. This broadcast was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chicondo. Until next time, friends, please be safe and thanks for listening.